Hello, everyone. We are going to begin. The mayor is running a little bit late, and so I'm the pinch hitter at the moment. So welcome to our Clovis City Council meeting. And there's a lot written down here, and I'm like, do I have to read that all? But they just said I could read what's up here, so I'm just going to say that. So we are glad that you are here in person or online. If you are joining us by line, online, you probably already figured out that we're at www.cityofclovis.com agendas. Oh, thank goodness, the mayor's here. You can provide written comment at that same website. You can join us by phone, or we would always love to see you in person here. So to those that are here, thank you for being here. Hi, Mayor. Hello. I'll keep going 1 second longer if you want me to. So I think that's that. Written comment. We encourage folks to comment on items that are on our agenda by submitting a written comment, and the information on that is also on our agenda. If you want to call into tonight's meeting, the city clerk will take your call. You'll be held in a queue, and when it's your turn to talk, your line will be opened, and you can comment that way when we get to the item that you'd like to comment on. And we also appreciate those that are on WebEx if anyone is joining us that way tonight. So with all of that abbreviated instruction, we'll call the meeting to order, and we will ask Councilmember Whalen to lead us in the flag salute.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag and our republic.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ashbeck.
I am here.
Councilmember Messenger. Here. Councilmember Mwanatua.
Here.
Councilmember Whalen.
Here.
And Mayor Flores.
And I'm here.
You ready?
I'm finally here.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah. Public comments. Take it away. And here's your agenda with Bob has a conflict and then staff change. So there you go.
Okay. Public comments. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on any matter within the City Council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Anyone wishing to be placed on the agenda for a specific topic should contact the City Manager's office and submit correspondence at least 10 days before the desired date of appearance. Is there anyone wishing to make a public comment? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Norman Morrison from the Dry Creek Preserve. I have a couple questions for the City Council. I'll also be speaking in regards to the sphere of influence issue later, but there's two things that have been going on with dealing with projects that the council's approved in the past. Number one, I seem to recall that 3 years ago we were told that a traffic light would be coming to the intersection at Nice and Sunnyside within the next 2 years. Well, we're 3 years out now, and accidents keep happening on a weekly basis there. Ask 85, they roll out on a weekly basis to people colliding at that intersection. We've seen nothing happening from the city other than dumping more cars into that intersection. That intersection needs to be taken care of. The traffic that you guys have also put into Sunnyside with your projects, going down Sunnyside through the DCP, has also led to problems on Sunnyside. We have high-speed traffic now. My family's almost been hit 6 times this year by people passing over the double yellow line as we turn left into our driveway. People next door to me, it's almost a major collision when some people decided to also try to pass over the yellow lines as they were pulling a flatbed trailer with some tractors into their property. You guys have done nothing to resolve the traffic. And it's getting worse now because we were told as part of the conditions for Woodside's project that would be an EVA opposite my property, an emergency vehicle access only. I can understand the construction equipment being using it. It's now being used by everyone. There are cars going up and down that road that are not workers. They are not construction workers. They are not construction equipment. They're late model Mercedes SUVs being driven by older people and similar, driving down there probably to check on their properties. That's not what that road was there for. We were promised that that would be an EVA, that the only vehicles on it would be emergency vehicles. Again, I can understand the construction vehicles, but you guys are doing nothing for it. We've also even had a metal plate on the road that's come up 3 times. We tried calling the city. City staff said, oh, we're on the other side of town. We won't get out there till much later. This was throwing people into people's homes almost. So we had to call the county. We were told that that metal plate was only supposed to be there for 1 week. We're now in week 4. Are you guys going to oversee the projects that you approve, or just kind of let the developers run wild? Are you going to take care of the traffic that's coming up from your projects, or just let it go? I mean, it's affecting us. Yes, we are the county. We're not Clovis. But we're having the effects from your development. We're living with the promises that you guys made years ago that aren't being followed through on. And this kind of leads to the next thing later tonight, which I'll address. Now you're wanting to do even more. So I would appreciate it if you guys could take some action with staff and actually get staff to do something out there. Get a sign out, get blocks up so only construction vehicles and emergency vehicles can get on that. Get on this traffic light that we were promised years ago as part of the development. You're just going to keep seeing accidents. I mean, I had 85 out for something the other day. I talked with them about this. They said they respond on a weekly or more basis to collisions at Nees and Sunnyside. You're not going to see them. I know we've had this discussion before. You asked staff about it. You asked the PD about it. They said they weren't aware of anything. That's because it's 85 that responds. It doesn't come to you guys. Check with the state. See what their responses are. You're going to find there's a lot more going on at that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Morrison, would you mind giving me your address again? I know you've shared it before.
I can, but state deputy attorney has to be kept out of the public records.
Oh, is that what your role is?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask it this way.
Sure.
Are you directly across the emergency access?
Yes.
I think that's what you testified to.
Yes.
Thank you.
It looks into my teenage girl's bedroom.
Okay.
And, Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, I would recommend that Renee Mathis contact Mr. Morrison just to get additional information. We can follow up on it, and we'll get back with you.
Okay.
They can contact me. Mr. Holt, I think you've actually got my contact information. They're welcome to contact me at their convenience.
Thank you.
She's actually right here tonight, so we'll contact you out in the lobby, and
That's fine.
that'll even be better.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
My name is Charles Bro. I was here about 3 weeks ago regarding the problems that I see at Gettysburg School. And I have to commend you folks. 2 days later, the crews were out painting the crosswalks, but that's all they painted. And the problem that's involved there not only is the crosswalks, but the signage in the streets. Now, I prepared a map. Do you all have a copy of it? I brought it in, and it delineates the problems that are out there. One of the problems that I see is that, number one, the signage can hardly be seen. Now, let me give a little background. There are cars going through there at 40 miles an hour when there are little kids coming to school. In walking my dog, I've almost been killed twice in the crosswalk before it was painted. So there are definite problems, and Gettysburg Avenue by Armstrong Avenue is a speedway. So I've made proposals on this document that I've given you, which requests that. Now, notice the eastern boundary of Gettysburg School is almost 400 feet away from that crosswalk. And yet the signage in the road is probably starts about 25 feet away from the crosswalk, so there's no early warning given to people so that they can slow down and go through there at 25 miles an hour or less. The signage on the north side is so pale that it can hardly be seen. And on the north side, on the south side of the street, it's even worse. And it, too, is so close to the crosswalk that goes across Gettysburg Avenue that people are in danger constantly. The crossing guards have told me that they've almost been hit several times. And every one of the crosswalk guards that I talked to has said the same problem. that cars that come up there, they're doing 40 miles an hour, and they just go around the crossing guard. So there, I think, is more than one aspect of this problem which needs to be addressed. Number one, the crosswalks and the signage should all be repainted. There should be signage closer to Armstrong Avenue, down toward the eastern boundary of Gettysburg School. In addition to that, I never see an officer out there. Again, this is a raceway at 8 o'clock in the morning when kids are coming to school. And so I've asked on this form, which I've given you, that you work with the police department and see if once in a while, on a rotating kind of basis, an officer could show up and just park by the side of the road. If they get a call, they leave. But no officers are ever out there at this time. Another aspect of this is that out here on Fifth Street, where you have a school and you have all the government agencies, it's posted 25 miles an hour. Why not just pass a resolution that says that all school zones will be 25 miles an hour and that's it? Whether it's day, night, Saturday, Sunday, there's always kids out there. And if we can have 25 miles an hour out here for the school and for the government people who are here, why can't we just have it for all of the schools so that people are forced to stop and not perhaps be in a situation where a little kid gets killed or me and my dog get killed? I don't want to be killed out there. And so this map is intended to show you those distances from which are involved in this particular situation. Almost 400 feet from the eastern boundary of the school up to where the existing signage is. Another 185 feet from the beginning of the north side signage up to the crosswalk. And then on the other side of the street, on the south side of the street, it's 155 feet to the western boundary of the signage which is in the street. None of it can be seen, and not only should this be repainted, but it also should be painted further toward the perimeter boundaries of the school. It's my understanding that school zones extend 300 feet beyond the actual site of the school. And that it would be good to have signage at that distance from the school itself in order to provide, I think, a reasonable degree of protection. You've all had a chance to look at this map, I hope. Are there any questions that you have about it?
Oh, pretty clear. We're going to have Scott Redolph talk to you, so you can. Do you have another copy of it, or do you have a copy? He's got a copy. You can give him.
Who?
He's Scott. He's the director of Public Works. So.
Okay, I would have thought that the city clerk would have provided it, but that's okay. I left a message for the day after the meeting, which I attended earlier, 3 weeks ago. I got a call from Mr. Redolph's, and then when I realized that the signage had not been repainted, I called Mr. Negretti and got no response. I called Mr. Redolph's and left a message and got no response. So as much as I didn't want to be here tonight, I'm here because I would hope that the staff would understand the urgency of this problem. Now, they've said, the staff have told me, well, we can only paint the signage in June. What? Why can't the Public Works Department paint this stuff during the Thanksgiving break, which is right around the corner, and the schools are out for a full week? Why not do it during Christmas? Why not do it during 4th of July? Why not do it during the spring break? There are plenty of opportunities for the Public Works Department to get out there, and the detours that they set up to paint the crosswalks were only there for about 2 hours. 2 hours and they were out of there completely. The paint was dry and they were gone. So it can't be that big a problem to set up some kind of painting crew to get out there during the Thanksgiving holiday and make sure that something tragic doesn't happen between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Okay.
I appreciate your help so far, but there's more to be done, and I would expect that the Public Works Department would cooperate in that endeavor.
And we'll get it done.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, John, maybe the next time the subcommittee meets with the school district and the council, whenever that might occur, we could put this general item, because every school has some variation of the challenge. Some schools have electronic, this is how fast you're going, and some don't. And so maybe we could just put that on our, we have a subcommittee with 2 school board members and 2 council members where we talk about traffic and access and all of that, land use. So we can also put it there for additional conversation with the district.
I would also ask you to talk with the police chief and see if it isn't possible. They don't have to be there every day.
No.
If they were there once every 6 weeks, that'd be enough to slow people down if they were parked out there.
Yeah.
And that way they could do it on a rotating basis to all of the schools to try to get these fast-moving streets slowed down just for that 20-minute period during which kids are coming from everywhere.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the council on a topic not on the agenda, public comment?
Good evening.
Your name?
Good to see you all. Should I state my name so everyone knows who I am? Okay. Paul Pierce. I live at 8321 North Fowler. I walked in on the speech about Sunnyside, the traffic, and it just echoes what happens to me on Fowler, the number of traffic. He talks about Nees and Sunnyside. We have Fowler and Teague. The traffic is so bad out there, and I just don't see any control on it at all. To show records of the number of accidents, evidently aren't recorded with police. I know one time I had an accident out there just about 3 years ago where somebody went through from the right side to my side, took out a tree and smashed up, and I'd call the 911 to get something, and they go, well, is anyone bleeding or really bad shape, or is any cars blocking the street or anything? I go, no. Oh, well, we don't come out then. You'll have to take care of it.
Now, do you live in the city proper, or do you live in the county?
No, I live between Nees and Teague on Fowler. I'm in the county.
So
But I'm calling 911, which should be respond to anything.
Yeah, but did you call CHP, or who answered the call?
I called 911.
Yeah, but
And normally they would refer somebody, well, don't they?
depends who answers the call. If it's CHP and they ask you those questions, they may not respond. I know we respond to calls that do not involve injury, so we would have been there. Clovis PD would have been there.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of, I've been hit like 4 times, but the accident isn't that bad to have a police response. I mean, there's no way to keep track of all these records that are just small wrecks to know how bad the traffic is. But Fowler's turning into a raceway. They're going 70 miles an hour in the middle of the night, up and down. I have a lot of difficulty even trying to get out onto the street to pull out because of the traffic speeding by and how heavy it is. Traffic is backed up from Nees past my house a lot of times. I don't know, probably when school gets out or something. But the traffic is getting ridiculous, and there's no police or anything around at all to control this out in that area. I mean, a friend of mine lives in the Shepherd Teague city. He's had his car busted in about 3 times. He says other people down the street have had their cars busted into. Evidently, no police ever come around to patrol the area. And I just, for Clovis to keep growing out, you're wanting to grow out more. How many police are you putting in to cover this area? It's a major problem. I mean, before you try to get any more people coming around, let's get some police out there at least, get some protection and traffic control.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Anyone else?
Good evening. Thank you for your time. Rich Meisner. And I am here on behalf of St. Martha's Pantry, or more to the point of this council, to the 350 families that it supports on a monthly basis in food donations that it gathers from other businesses in the city of Clovis. And I don't want to take a lot of time with you. I don't have an opening statement, but I provided a written statement. And I'm really here to address any questions that did not answer.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Meisner?
Mr. Meisner, how often does the pantry run? My mother-in-law volunteers there, but I actually never asked her.
Was running weekly. So,
Weekly?
yeah, they were giving out donations.
And the diocese has decided to transfer that downtown
That's
completely?
correct. Actually, I believe it was the parish decision.
I'm sorry?
I believe it was the parish decision.
The parish, okay.
To suspend that and have it go downtown.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is it a staffing problem, how do you sustain it problem, or do you have enough donations problem? Because I think, Catholic Charities is wonderful, but it's not here. And if you need food and you probably don't have a car and you have 3 kids and all the rest, it gets complicated. So what was the thinking behind the parish's action, do you know?
That's spot on to my concern, by the way. And the parish, the actual St. Martha's Pantry is self-sustaining through donations and other things. So unlike many others that may come before you, I'm not asking for money. But specific to your question, when asked, I was told that it was a situation where they didn't feel there was sufficient investigation into the people that were getting the food. And so we did have a process set up before that would research who was getting the food, what the families were, what the needs were. During COVID, that particular process was suspended because basically at that point in time it was cars coming in and we would just provide them food. Like I said, that was suspended, and now there's a concern that there's not sufficient vetting.
Well, I'm not sure what you're right, your letter says you're not sure if there's anything we could do, and I don't know if collectively, but my kids are old PH alumni, so, I do feel like taking these services out of Clovis is probably not the direction that's right. I struggle a little bit with need. And you could just go on, if people came, they must need food, but I'm sure people take advantage of it, but I don't know if that's enough reason to, it's not my decision, but that's a little disconcerting, I guess. So, I, for one, am with you on, it'd be great to not have this service go away. I don't know really what, I'll chime in myself.
No,
but I'm not sure what we can do, but I hear you, and I think Clovis is really trying to be more welcoming and inclusive, and we have people that need food. It's that simple. So I think to not have that here, puts a burden on the Salvation Army. I don't know anyone else besides the Salvation Army that has a pantry here.
I was going to ask about Salvation.
Do they still do their pantry?
There's a few churches, and do you know Salvation Army?
And they actually stopped this process the last Saturday of October. So since then, people have been redirected to Salvation Army, and they've been redirected to other parishes. But again, that's a distance, and for some people, people are showing up at shopping carts and baskets, or bicycles. So any distance travel is going to be impeding them.
Yeah.
And again, at this point in time, if we could possibly just get a letter of some type, that would be in support of St. Martha's Pantry and the work that they've done since 2003. And they've had a lot of families. There's a lot of businesses that I know are contributing. So I think it affects more than just those individuals, because now those businesses under new California law, they have to find a place for their food stuff to go. And so they're going to be, basically, they're going to have to find some other outlet for that. And it may not be in Clovis, I don't know.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention,
Okay.
for sure.
Thanks for your attention.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone on the web?
No.
And then we got the correspondence that was here on our dais. So we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. With respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are to be placed upon the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless the council member requests individual consideration. A council member's vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption of the consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading or any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. For adoption of the ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. And I understand there's an item here where Councilmember Whalen has a conflict.
Item 10.
And does any other council member wish to pull an item or bring one up for individual consideration? Anyone in the public wishing to pull an item from the consent calendar? Anyone on the web?
No.
Okay, so I'll bring that up.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar minus item number 10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So the motion carries 5-0 with no noes. And so at this point, are you going to abstain or?
I'll just abstain.
Okay, so we'll consider a motion to approve item 10.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So the motion carries 4 ayes, no noes, and 1 abstention. And we move on to council items. Consider approval, confirmation of city manager's appointment to Economic Development, Housing, and Communications Director. And it's presented by our city manager, John Holt.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. I am recommending City Council confirm the appointment of Chad McCollum as the new Economic Development, Housing, and Communications Director. Chad currently serves as a Public Affairs and Information Manager. He joined the city in March of 2019, and prior to that, Chad has 20 years of experience in the broadcast news industry. My office it was opportune for Chad to join the city in March of 2019, just prior to the pandemic, because he ended up becoming a key player in navigating the city through the pandemic in communications with business and the residents. Chad has unlimited potential and is performing at a very high level, and that's why I'm highly recommending City Council consider the confirmation of the appointment of Chad McCollum as the Economic Development, Housing, and Communications Director. That concludes staff's report. I'm available for questions, and Chad and family are in the audience.
Any questions for John regarding this item? Nope.
Last chance to go back to TV news. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So, anyone in the public wishing to comment on this item?
I would like Chad to make a comment, please.
What's that?
I'd like to Chad McCollum to make a comment, please.
This is your opportunity.
Last chance.
I'm pretty happy where I am.
3 a.m.
Yeah,
in the morning. You really want to be down there at 3 a.m.
So I'm not from Clovis, but I got here as soon as I could. We moved here from LA 15 years ago and worked at a couple of different TV stations in town and was very, very fortunate when this opportunity that I'm currently in came up. I've always enjoyed working with this council in my current role as we communicate programs and services to residents. It's great seeing so many residents here in the audience. It's not always the case. Sometimes more people are listening online than in person, and I'd love to see more of this. It's just fantastic, and it's great for my kids to see, you know, the public square, town square taking place. I look forward to working with this council in this new role, should I be confirmed. Mayor Flores and Councilmember Whalen. It's been a pleasure working with the both of you. And I know that as you move on, we're still going to be under your watchful eye, the rest of the council members and the new council members that will be joining. It'll be great to move forward and to take this role, and it's a very important role, and follow the policy that you all set forth and take it and run with it and just do our best. It's an important time. It's a crucial time. There's a lot of uncertainty in the economy, and I think it's a very important time for us to be really buckled down, serving our residents, serving businesses large and small. And I'm humbled, I'm excited, and I'm very grateful as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
May I introduce my family? Is that all right? Is it appropriate? All right. My wife's in the front row here. This is Lindsay. We celebrated our 17th anniversary last month. I better get that right. Maggie.
Might not be an 18th.
I know. Maggie. This is Maggie. Maggie's in 8th grade at Alta. She's actually playing some double duty tonight because she's up for an award over at the Veterans Memorial District for an essay she wrote about patriotism. So as soon as this takes place, they're getting out of here for her to go maybe do this sort of thing. So very proud of her. And this is Lars. Lars is 10. He goes to Woods Elementary. He made the basketball team today, so it's very exciting.
Nice.
And my mother-in-law, Lorraine Oman, who's here visiting from Visalia.
Okay.
So.
Mayor, I've got a question for Chad.
Sure.
Chad, we've really been impressed with your work as you've kind of led us through some pretty challenging times associated with communicating out to the folks, and not just in the city of Clovis, but really to our region and other folks in the media. Tell me about your attraction to the idea. Well, first of all, let me put you at ease. Of course, we're going to be approving you.
Thank you.
But tell me about your attraction to the idea of specifically economic development and housing. I can certainly see the communications director, but this is a bit of a new kind of role for you. So why would you do this?
I may wonder that at some point in the future, but tonight I'm 100% sure, and I will be sure. I'm very excited about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, my involvement with communications is we communicate the important programs that are taking place with affordable housing regularly, and anytime there's an economic development, a new business, some program or service, we communicate that. These three programs, these three divisions really work well together.
Okay.
And I feel like there's an opportunity to have some good synergy, build some bridges between the three of them, and do a better job because there's an oversight of all three. There's a great team in place already, and they've been doing a really good job with economic development and housing, and I feel like them coming together is going to be a really nice fit.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chad.
Lynn?
Chad, do you see at some point hiring a kind of a true PIO to do the work, because you do spend a lot of time on the dailiness of the PIO role. So how do you see kind of managing the newer, larger responsibilities with the dailiness that happens sometimes in your role?
In a perfect world, I've replaced myself with someone who's able to do everything and more that I've been able to bring to the table. Hopefully there's no future pandemic that causes us to learn all the lessons that we learned, but we really were able to get to a point where we were nimble. We were able to use our social media, our website, traditional media in a way that I think had never been done before, and we'll continue to use those lessons moving forward with these programs, economic development, affordable housing, and just communicating the programs that are taking place all over the city that are so important.
I will agree. I think you have raised the level of the work, and I think as the city goes forward, that it'll be even more important, especially when you think about how do we as a city make money? We make it through economic development, so there's a little pressure on you, but we know you're up to the challenge.
I thrive under pressure, yeah.
Excellent.
Chad, I'd like to add that I have a lot of friends who are real estate agents, and one thing they have is the ability to communicate. And so I have no doubt that you will transition into the other roles fairly easy because you have been our cheerleader, and that's what we need. We need someone that sings the praises of Clovis, what opportunities are here, how their business, their family can thrive in Clovis, and that's why they want to be here. And I think you'll do good. So we'll close the, do we have anybody on the web?
No.
So we'll close the public portion and bring it back to the council.
I'll make a motion that we approve the confirmation of Chad for this new role.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So it's unanimous.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you, council. I appreciate, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the endorsement of City Manager John Holt as well, and Andy Hausler, who was in this role previously. I'm going to be leaning on him initially quite a bit, and the support of the directors who are in all the departments across the city already doing fine work. So thank you very much.
Moving on to item 15, consider approval, change of council meeting schedule. John Holt, our City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. We're able to consolidate the meeting. Staff is recommending canceling the meeting of November 21st, which is next Monday. That concludes staff's report, and we are available for questions.
Any questions for John from the council? Anyone here in the public wishing to comment on this item? Anyone on the web?
No.
I'll bring it back to the council.
Motion to approve.
Second, my birthday.
Okay, we'll celebrate. Your motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So it's 5-0. Motion carries.
What about the cake?
The cake, you got to buy it. Next items, administrative items. Administrative items are matters on the regular city council agenda other than public hearings. Item 16, consider various items associated with plus or minus 923 acres of property located north of Shepherd Avenues, generally between Sunnyside Avenue and North Carson Avenue, the Big Dry Creek Dam. A, consider approval of a resolution, a request authorizing the city manager to execute a consultant agreement between the City of Clovis and De Novo Planning Group for the preparation of an environmental impact report and related services. And B, consider an approval of a resolution, a request allowing for the preparation and submittal of an application to the Fresno County Local Agency Formation Commission to amend the City of Clovis sphere of influence to include the plus or minus 923 acres. And staff is Mackenzie Paris and Renee Mathis.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Mayor, if you will indulge me, I want to do just a very brief introduction, and then I'll turn it over to Mackenzie for the presentation. Great, thank you. So I wanted to introduce to the council Mackenzie Perez. She comes to us from the city of Fresno. She is our newest senior planner. She's been here since September. We threw her right in with some very important projects, so Mackenzie will be doing the presentation tonight on this item. However, just as a little bit of background, I wanted to just highlight to council that this particular project has been going on for quite a few years. We started just the evaluation and research of this project all the way back in 2016. We've held multiple meetings. This project has been before council in various forms as far as areas to cover. Tonight's item is consideration of a consultant agreement with De Novo. Back in March of 2021, council actually heard this very item. The acreage has changed just slightly, but De Novo was recommended and council did approve at that time moving forward with these very two items. Moving down the road, there were some considerations to shrink that area down just due to some environmental constraints. So we're back before you tonight because those areas have been addressed. We have a path forward, and so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mackenzie. I'm here to answer questions because there is quite a bit of history, but I think Mackenzie's got this. Thank you.
Welcome, Mackenzie.
Oh, can you hear me? Yep. Hi. Thank you, Renee, for the introduction. Mayor Flores, council members, tonight you're considering two resolutions related to items for approximately 923 acres of property located north of Shepherd Avenue, just east of Sunnyside Avenue. The resolutions include a request for authorization for the city manager to enter into an agreement with between the city and de novo for preparation of an environmental impact report and related services. The second resolution is a request for authorization to allow staff to submit and prepare an application to the Fresno Local Area Formation Commission for the sphere amendment to include the 923 acres. So just, Renee did provide a little bit of background. Back in March of 2021, Council approved an SOI amendment for approximately 1,050 acres. In November of 2021, that was reduced from 1,050 to 155 acres, which the Council approved. Then in February of 2022, the city entered into an agreement with de novo for the 155 acres for preparation of the EIR that's currently in process. Since then, there have been discussions related to the remainder of the property, and that's why we are before you tonight for the 923 acres. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I know, I skipped it. Okay, so on this slide here, you'll see an aerial of the subject property. The area outlined in yellow is the city limits, and then the area highlighted in kind of green shaded area is the 155 acres that's currently in process under separate environmental review. And then the area outlined in red is the subject property. Okay, so again, de novo is preparing the EIR for the 155 acres. Based off of the work in the area, they will be preparing the EIR for the 923 acres. The EIR will include multiple technical studies, including a traffic impact report, ag analysis, air quality analysis, noise studies, bioresources, and cultural resources analysis. The project will also include water and sewer studies for the area, and the EIR is anticipated to take about 12 to 16 months. Staff is recommending that a small portion of the EIR cost to be funded by the city. Previously, the council approved about 12% of the total cost of the EIR and half the cost of the sewer and water studies to be covered by the city. Staff is recommending the same cost share to be approved. Since the last proposal, the additional cost is about $7,500. Staff is requesting approval to prepare and submit the application to LAFCO. This would allow us to start the process for the municipal service report to begin concurrently with preparation of the EIR. LAFCO application will not be complete until the EIR is certified and the MSR is complete. Per direction from council, we have provided notification of this hearing to property owners within the 923 acres, as well as within 800 feet from the 923 acres, and then within the Dry Creek Preserve area. This slide was prepared prior to us receiving additional inquiries. In total, since we've mailed out the notices, we've received 5 inquiries, 1 by phone, and then 4 letters that were provided to you guys this evening. Our next steps, if approved, we would execute the agreement with de novo. Staff and the applicant will work together to determine the appropriate entitlements. Preparation of a master plan for the area is required, and that's what we will work on. Preparation of the LAFCO application, and we'll coordinate with the county. The EIR preparation will begin, and then throughout this process, there will be multiple opportunities for the public to provide input throughout the EIR process, as well as throughout the processing of the entitlement. Staff recommends that the council approve a resolution authorizing the city to enter into an agreement with de novo for preparation of the environmental impact report, and to approve the resolution authorizing staff to prepare and submit an application to LAFCO. That concludes. I'm not sure what this is. Oh.
Questions for Mackenzie?
Yeah, thank you for the report, Mackenzie, and welcome to Clovis.
Thank you.
Yeah. I had a question. With regards, the last time we were here, it was, the big issue was the Endangered Species Act with the tiger salamander. So is that something in which this will then help study and address, or has that been addressed so that way, that's why this is moving forward?
I will let the applicant go into that a little bit further, but there has been some analysis, done through a biological, report that will be incorporated into the, EIR. So ECorp is preparing that biological assessment, that'll be incorporated into the EIR, and De Novo will be doing a peer review of that for that project area. So it will be included as part of this. So some has occurred, and they can go into a little bit further that has already been complete, but it will be incorporated into the EIR.
So whatever's been completed, have you looked at it?
Not yet.
Because before, okay, so even without looking at it on the staff level, you're comfortable with whatever the applicant will say to ask us to move forward with this agreement then?
Yes. So what would happen is the bio study, we will review it as well as De Novo, and then if there's any mitigation measures that come up from that based off of the analysis that was done, those would be incorporated. So those will let us know if there's feasible mitigation or what types of mitigation we can complete for that.
But the last time when it came before us, staff was pretty involved in knowing about the issue, understanding the potential restrictions that it came about, though, during that presentation to the council. So why aren't you as involved now, so that way you can kind of give us some assurances that, I know that the applicant will, but why hasn't the staff said, yes, we looked at the preliminary, it looks like something in which the environmental study can really hash out, but we're comfortable moving forward? I just wanted to understand.
Sure. No, that's a great question. We just haven't received that report yet. At this point, what we're requesting is council's authorization to enter into that contract with De Novo. We'll receive that report, we'll review it. De Novo will also do a peer review, and if anything additional is needed, we'll address it at that point in time. So tonight's action is really to just kind of get the project going again for environmental review. If council will recall, it was at the applicant's request to reduce the size down because at that point in time, I think the mitigation, and again, I will defer to the applicant, was large. And so I think they have made some strides in how to address that, and that's what they'll speak to tonight, and then we will be able to see with that additional report that was prepared.
In the EIR, it says that we will prepare the sewer and wastewater, or wastewater and water, sewer and water analysis. Is this an appropriate time, as we're studying such a huge area, in which we will analyze potential other means to take care of sewer, for example, like the standalone stuff that we see up in Tesoro Viejo? Is this the time, or is this where we just look at our current sewer master plan and go, it serves it? And so I wanted to understand, you know, isn't this a great time to look at that and go, hey, here's another option in order to help mitigate or allow projects to move forward? Let's take this, we're doing an EIR, let's study it, so that way this project can move forward in addition to whatever we have the capacity for.
So it's my understanding as these projects come forward, we contract with some typical consultants to do these studies specific to the project. So anything outside of what would normally be studied is not part of this project.
And if I could add, that type of analysis would likely be done on the general plan update. When we complete the general plan update, then begin to take a look at updating the sewer and water master plans.
So this will only look at 900 acres and compare it to what our current sewer master plan is to see if we have the capacity to accommodate it? Is that my understanding?
That's generally my understanding, yes. So this is going to focus on this particular project area, which these studies are very common. They're typical to be required of these projects.
Okay. I just feel like it's a good time we're studying it, throw it in, because it doesn't need to look at what we have. It can just be something new, in which I think the staff has started to look at I mean, it's been presented to Mayor and a couple of council members to look.
Sure, I can take that back and I'll speak with our city engineer. Of course, that would be a cost. Anything outside of the scope of their project would be borne, you know, by the city, so.
Okay. And then I didn't see the schedule for that in the schedule. Let me see what the page is for the wastewater. Page 123. You know, it has the schedule for everything, so since I was looking at that, it didn't show how many days it would take and where it would fall under, so I'm assuming it must be task 4, 5, 6, and 7 someplace.
Mackenzie's pulling up the actual schedule. Typically, it's done at the appropriate time that the environmental document is being prepared, so we can give it to our consultant and they can include the findings of that analysis in the report.
Yeah, I just see that it lists everything else. It lists noise, traffic, cultural, biological, air quality. And so it didn't have our portion, how long it would take and where it was, because I think it gives, at least for me, a sense of it is extensive, that we are going to do a lot of work. That's why we're getting paid some, but helping pay some because we're benefiting as well.
Yeah, so again, the studies will be triggered by the city. Our engineering section will run those studies and they will be completed at the appropriate time in the preparation of the studies so the findings can be incorporated.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't specifically outline it in the timeline, but that would be one of the studies that would be required prior to them doing the draft and submitting the draft for public comment.
Okay. I just think it's a big one. That's why it should be.
Yeah,
I look at it just like traffic.
Yeah, they do mention something in hydrology section about water and sewer studies, but it's not in the timeline.
Okay, that one has it. Okay, I was told by our city attorney that page 125 has it, which much more extensive and, okay, I'll take a look at that. And then, is the master plan totally after all the annexation, not annexation, but when it gets to the sphere? That's a much longer or afterwards, the process?
I'm sorry, so
the master plan process,
it would be concurrent, so we would, we would,
okay.
because we'll need to know what the land uses will be, what they're triggering, so that we would be able to analyze those within, the EIR.
Okay, so that is gonna go on concurrently?
Yeah, and that would be one of the next steps is, we would need a master plan for the area.
Okay. And help me understand, let me see on page 113, it talks about the VMT analysis, and it says that we're going to look at the COGS, whatever their documentation, and not what we prepared. Is that because our VMT analysis did not include this area in it?
No, so we would, since we're in the Fresno COG area, we do incorporate what analysis they have, and then we will use our recently adopted guidelines to see how we can address VMT for this specific project. Okay,
so theirs is what we use as an analysis first because they did one regionally, and then from there we use the one we just approved to see if there's any more mitigation that fits sort of specifically to Clovis.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And that's it, thank you.
Sure. I'm in agreement with Vong. I'd hate to see us miss an opportunity to at least explore the standalone treatment plants, which actually could, and I realize this isn't part of this, but I just want staff to understand that there's an expectation, or at least at some point there's going to be an expectation, that we look at that because it does two things. It saves us from having to tear up a bunch of road to connect this to our treatment plant, and it also will help the water table out there. So that obviously that's something for another day, but I think the day is coming. Looking at the map, all of the county residences within the red have been notified? And we only received
Correct.
5 comments?
Yes, I received 1 phone call and then the 4 letters.
Okay, I assume there's some good folks here tonight to address it too. That's all I have, thank you.
Ben?
Thank you, Mackenzie, welcome. 2 questions specifically. The travel, given the earlier comments tonight, the scope of the travel analysis is a half mile, is the way I read the CIR. Is that enough, given what we heard tonight in terms of the traffic in the general area? Half mile out there is not too far? Half mile anywhere is not too far.
Yeah, they will, so the de novo consultant will be meeting with our engineering staff to give a more finite analysis for the traffic consultant. The proposal includes a certain number of intersections or up to a certain number of intersections, and then based off of that, our city staff will let them know what intersections, what areas to analyze.
Would we be able to say we need to analyze additional intersections, that the sort of the circle around which they're drawing this to study needs to be bigger, potentially? Yes. So I think that's probably worth a thought, because I think one of the things that runs through some of the letters and the comments is it's a cumulative impact on the neighborhood. It's not a thing. It's a this plus this plus this is what we're trying to attend to. Now, I know we're trying to measure just this project, but it does have a cumulative impact on the larger community. My second question is, I can't really remember exactly what all goes into EIR. That's why I was reading on my phone. I wasn't like shopping or anything. I was trying like, what goes into EIR? And some of the documents that I quickly could find have a section on sort of the social and community context impacts of development. I don't see that as a category in this outline. Am I reading it was some lawyers group that put that out, so it probably wasn't even right. But if it was right, does this EIR include any of that sort of social community impact? And I'm thinking specifically of public safety.
So public safety is part of the EIR through public services. The social justice wouldn't be a component of this specific EIR.
It would be?
Would not.
Would not.
But police services is essentially a category under public services.
Okay. Oh, I see. Public services recreation. That will include the impact on public safety.
That's one component: recreation, fire services, police services.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure. I see it here, but then when I saw this other reference, I think it was called social and, what was it called? I wrote it down. Social and economic impact. That's what it was called. So I wondered about that, calling that out specifically, but not in this particular study, not deemed necessary, not a California requirement. I was looking at the wrong website.
Typically, I see those in like commercial, retail type projects.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Mackenzie, thank you for the staff report. I appreciate it, particularly the background. It's been a challenge for me, at least, to kind of keep track of what we've been doing in this particular area. So that was informative for me. It looks like what is being requested is really what the council previously approved in March of 2021, and I understand that. My concern with this project has been related basically to the idea of I'd like our development in the city of Clovis to be done in an orderly fashion, you know, Loma Vista, and then Heritage Grove, and then perhaps here. Perhaps there may be an opportunity for us to kind of be more aggressive in our development should we find that there's been, you know, like previously we've had some concerns with large landowners and them being in control of development in the city of Clovis because they're choosing not to sell or sell at a price that is really a price that is not very economical for us to develop housing in the city of Clovis. So that's I'm just sharing that with you by way of background of my position because I know that you're new to this. More specifically on tonight's proposal, even though it's something that we've approved in the past, I guess I'm challenged a little bit with the idea of having these move concurrently. And the reason for that is that I believe that the environmental impact report would help inform some of the community outreach that's going to be taking place. And the community outreach component, I think is also going to be important when we approach LAFCO for approval. From what I've read in the report, that there are some, I would just describe them as maybe some economies of scale or efficiencies that are associated with having these run concurrently, and I'm trying to decide in my mind whether those benefits are worth separating these out so that the community can be informed about the environmental impacts. Because much, I think, of the discussion is going to be focused on, or at least any pushback is going to be focused on some of the environmental impacts associated with this expansion of the sphere of influence. So the municipal services review apparently is the area that we see a lot of our economic benefit to having these move forward concurrently. Can you help me to understand why the municipal services review is an important component of either the EIR or the LAFCO?
So when we do an SOI amendment, that's one of the requirements that LAFCO has us do is the MSR. So as part of the SOI amendment, as well as with the Shepherd North project, we'll trigger the MSR for this project as well. So since they're both SOI amendments, that's what's triggering the MSR review. So that's why if we get the authorization to start today, we'd be able to begin that process with LAFCO. Again, we wouldn't be able to complete any annexations or anything like that until the EIR and then the MSR is complete.
So is there anything about the EIR that would impact the MSR?
So the MSR is specific to services, what services the city has in regards to all components. Not necessarily the impact that it will have, but it will provide some information that you'd be able to trigger. So if the sewer water analysis comes back and says there's this capacity, that type of information may be able to be included in the MSR.
Okay. Okay, so as we move forward with the EIR, should that be approved, then that's also going to be informing the MSR, and the MSR is necessary for the LAFCO approach. So it feels as though well, let me ask it this way. Is there ever a time where it does make sense to separate out an EIR from an approach to LAFCO to expand our sphere of influence, or is it just kind of always running on concurrent or parallel?
So an MSR could occur alone without an EIR. It's a data document. So it doesn't necessarily need an EIR to be complete. It just depends when the last MSR was completed, whether the LAFCO needs to update it every so often for cities. So if we didn't have the SOI amendment, depending on when the last one was, 2020, I believe, maybe 5 years from now, then we would, LAFCO would do another MSR, not necessarily related to an EIR or project with an EIR.
Okay. Okay, so that I'm kind of going back and forth and with the answers I'm receiving, not because you're inconsistent, it's just that I'm trying to digest what you're communicating.
The MSR can be a requirement based off of how long it's been. So I think it's every 5 years that LAFCO has to update MSRs.
Okay.
Without any type of project. But because we have the SOI amendment, that's what's triggering the MSR.
So the municipal services review that is referenced in your staff report is not specifically related to this sphere of influence?
This one is, yes.
Okay.
This one is.
And if I could just add, the purpose of the MSR is just to have the city work with LAFCO to make sure that we can provide all the necessary services for, in this case, the 923 acres. The environmental is going to be an analysis of the particular 923 acres, and there may be some information from the environmental that could feed into the MSR, but they can run concurrently.
They can or cannot?
Can.
Okay. All right. But it's not necessarily required that they run concurrently?
Correct.
If I may, I'd like to add to just what John's saying. It's not required to do them at the same time. We are coming to council and recommending that council authorize us to prepare and begin that application in the MSR update. It's going to save time. There's efficiency there. We're able to garner information from the EIR to help supplement the preparation of that MSR, and as John indicated, it's you know, the MSR is going to identify the analysis and the city's ability to serve this new proposed area. So it's really about efficiency and just being able to capitalize. But I think your question is, have we done it like this in the past? I will speak from my own experience. I think typically you do the EIR and then you come back and you request an authorization to prepare and submit an application. In this case, we're requesting it at the same time because there's some efficiency to be gained.
Okay, and that I guess that's kind of, thank you, I appreciate that very much. And that's kind of getting to my struggle is that, you know, we all want to be very efficient in our work here in the city of Clovis. At the same time, we also recognize that governments aren't necessarily designed to be particularly efficient. They are designed to allow for opportunities for people to provide input into the decision-making process. And what is it that we will be giving up by going forward with this more efficient way of kind of this concurrent process? And perhaps will we be giving up people decision makers not making a fully informed decision, or will we be giving up fully informed participation by those that are going to be impacted by the decision? And so that's kind of in my head where I'm trying to figure out whether it makes sense for us to go concurrent. So I appreciate the answers to the question, and I'll continue to kind of figure it out as we discuss it more fully. Thank you, Mayor.
Could I ask a follow-up question to Bob? The first action that requests the preparation of the EIR, it's possible that the EIR could come back and it would show whatever findings that would be required to actually develop the project would be way out of anybody's ability, scope, finances. We may not move forward with the annexation, right? So we're not saying if we do the EIR and the MSR, the presumption is it's all going to work and all that. But I mean, there could be something that could show up in the EIR that would cause the applicant to go, you know, we're out, or we're not going to do that, or we've done it, but we're not going to move forward on our project, yeah?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I think from neighbors' perspective, there's some sense that there'll be houses going up next Friday in this 923 acres, and it's a long, long road. And there's a presumption that it's going to work, but there's not a guarantee that it's going to be that we're going to kind of go through the whole process. Yeah?
Correct, yes.
All right, thanks.
My turn. How many public meetings will happen after this when it comes to the EIR and the sphere of influence?
So when we start the EIR, there's a scoping meeting for the EIR to kind of introduce, and we'll take public comment there to see if there's anything, specific areas that the public has concern with that the consultant will include. There's a draft EIR that's published that's available for comment, depending on what comments we receive, determine if we'll have to recirculate it or if we could address those through the final EIR. And then the final EIR will come back for hearings, both with the Planning Commission and the Council.
And the LAFCO process, that's public?
Correct.
Do we do anything before that is public?
Before LAFCO?
Yes.
So once the EIR is certified, then that's necessary for us to go to LAFCO. But if we have any entitlements that we're doing, any pre-zoning or any maps or anything like that, those would be required to go to be heard at Council or Planning Commission.
Before LAFCO?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so there's plenty of opportunity of engaging the public, deciding these things at the end.
Correct.
And we heard today some testimony, it was actually in public comment, but it pertains to this item, because we're getting complaints of we've made promises to the people that live out in that area, and we haven't fulfilled them. But can we do anything right now if we don't control the sphere of influence?
With addressing some of the...
Can the city of Clovis do anything out there without it being in our sphere of influence?
If it's not in the sphere, I mean, there's things that we may be able to work with if they're located within the city limits that our team can work on, but we can work with the county staff to see if there's anything that...
So it would be up to the county to do the improvements?
If it's in county property, yes.
And until we annex it, are we responsible for making sure that things are improved, that the actual intersections are grown and new stoplights are in place?
Correct, yeah.
until then, you can't do that. So we actually need to put it in our sphere at least and start the process.
Yes, annexations, I would say, yeah.
The annexation process, so we can be in full control.
Correct.
Okay. Any more questions? At this point, I'll open up to the public. Anyone here wishing to comment on this item? Press the button.
All right. Yes. I'm a novice at this. Mayor, council members, as you know, I'm Jeffrey Harris. I work for Mr. Wilson, address 7550 North Palm in Fresno. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come before you tonight. Appreciate certainly very much the questions that you have asked staff. Mackenzie's done a fabulous job of working on this and preparing the staff report and answering your questions. Renee, thank you as well. Appreciate your involvement with it. As they indicated, and as the council knows very well, this is a matter that's been before you before. We've had extensive discussions about it, and so we're back now to bring back the full project. I would remind the council, you know very well, and Mayor Flores, you were speaking to it really directly, that at this time this area is not within the purview of your discretion. It is not something that you have the right to take action on. That's what it means to bring it into the sphere of influence, of course. We're not talking about annexing the property into the city at this time. We're not evaluating that. We're saying we believe it should be within the purview of the city of Clovis to make the determination of what to do and to study this project. To do that, you have to obviously expand your sphere, and that requires you to make application to LAFCO and open what may be a lengthy dialogue with the local agency formation commission staff, as well as the county staff. So we are recommending, and staff is concurring in the request to the council that you initiate a process tonight that will be undoubtedly quite lengthy as it relates specifically to expanding your sphere. I'll also remind the council, if I could, that you planned this area back in the 1990s. It's a part of your general plan. Many of you will recall that at that time you talked to the county of Fresno about possibly including this area in your sphere. They thought it was prudent at that time not to do that, but to have you focus more on the Loma Vista area. There was no talk about a 1, 2, 3 priority. There was merely work on Loma Vista first, and then come back and look at the other areas that you had included in your general plan. So again, I think it's important, not for the council, but for the public to really understand the difference between annexation of properties into the city of Clovis and amending your sphere to bring it into the area where it is your responsibility to analyze the impacts. Council member, you brought up the alternative sewer studies, and certainly it's something as a developer that we're very interested in. In this particular case, we're not seeking that. We recognize the council in your, in your jurisdiction may want to certainly take the opportunity to evaluate that and seek studies. That is not something that we as the applicant are seeking to look at. We are comfortable with studying the expansion of your system as you would with your existing plant, your existing trunk lines, and living within the box, if you will, of what you have designed out here. I just bring that up only for clarification. Councilmember Ashbeck, you mentioned the traffic studies, and it was a very good question, of course. And I would, just to add to the discussion, I'd like to explain to the council the process where the consultant will go back to the local, or to the COG and run their analysis. That initial analysis will then recommend from their initial computer run what intersections to study. It's tragic from our standpoint that another project that we're working on did their initial run, and they came back recommending, what was it, 50 extra intersections, I think it was, at a cost of $60,000 to us. And after we picked ourselves up off the floor, we agreed to it, and away we went. Because That's the way it's supposed to work. You do an initial run, the computer model itself will dictate what is to be studied, and in some cases it's very, very extensive. In that particular case, it's something that was recommended. The county then picked up and commented, and Caltrans picked up and commented and said, yes, consultant, we want you to study these extra intersections, including impacts on the freeway system. That is likely what will happen here. The initial proposal is doing what consultants do. They look at basically the minimum, and they say if there is a recommendation to do more, then they'll come back with an amendment to do more. Sadly, I'm guessing they'll come back with an amendment to do more. You bet. Councilmember Whalen, certainly we understand the concern that you've brought forward, and you've mentioned it, before, and it's certainly a reasonable concern. We believe, just we the applicant, believe very genuinely and sincerely that having LAFCO look at the municipal services review and opening that dialogue with your staff will generate a great deal of questions. Having that happen at the same time that the consultant for the EIR is evaluating constraints that are necessary to address the EIR concerns that are stipulated in state law will provide insight that both will utilize. LAFCO will find that information interesting and may seek additional studies. The EIR consultant will find the LAFCO questions interesting and may expand their studies. So we have found that it is, in this jurisdiction and other jurisdictions, that it is a symbiotic relationship to have both going at the same time. They generate questions for each other that both need to answer. So from our perspective, that's why we think it's a prudent thing to do. It's more than just being cost conscious. There's the interplay of information that needs to be addressed in both documents as they move forward. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's our perspective. With that, certainly I'm available for questions. Obviously, I'm speaking in favor of the project as the proponent. I do want to mention that Leo Wilson's here tonight, Todd Wilson's here tonight, Goldie Lewis on our staff is here tonight, as well as Stan Harbour and Lauren Smith from Harbour & Associates, who are our civil engineers. So if there are questions, I think we have the team here to answer it, at least as it relates to our proposal.
Question from Ms. Harris. Well,
Jeff, can you speak with regards to the tiger salamander issue?
Sure. There are documented finds of tiger salamanders in this area. And at the point when that originally came up, when we discovered that in our initial environmental preliminary reviews, that really was off-putting to us. That was a great setback. We did not know, quite honestly, what the path forward was to deal with that. That was when we came to the council, and you graciously agreed to narrow it down to the other portion of the project that is, I'll just say, more typical. And then we began looking at alternatives. We started talking to a number of consultants and saying, what do we do if there is, if this is present? Quite honestly, we are assuming presence. It's a technical term, but we are assuming presence out there, and then we will be working with the environmental authorities and the other agencies to identify how to mitigate it. We don't know what the level of mitigation will be. What we have done is identified what the strategy is to go forward to mitigate something like that, because in all honesty, Wilson Homes has not had to deal with that in the past. And so that's why you saw this move forward, step back, now move forward again. It's not that we know the answer to the question, and we cannot know the answer to the question until the EIR is complete. It will identify the level of mitigation that's required. We've just learned what are potential steps forward. Are they something that is going to render this project completely infeasible in our market, or is it something that potentially we can incorporate into the project and still have something to move forward with? We are confident, we don't know for sure, but we are confident that we will still be able to move forward as the EIR identifies the scope of the problem.
So as I recall from the last hearing, when this came forward to us, that if it is found, there's that however many mile radius in which the land has...
The circle of death,
yeah.
yes.
And so potentially, can it also then, in the future, decrease the area if what you fear most came to fruition? Is that something that?
No, there's a documented find, and within that circle, we're going to have to address the fact that there's the potential for that species to be there. And that's why we're assuming presence. It seems like a waste of time and effort to try to fight with the federal and state agencies over this. We're simply going to say, yeah, we understand that it's out in this area. How do we mitigate this properly to satisfy the Fish and Game authorities at both the state and federal level?
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Bob.
Thank you. Jeff, I actually find your comments to be rather persuasive when it comes to the idea of running these concurrently.
Let me write that down. I haven't heard you say that.
Last time you hear from them anyway.
That's right. If I ever have to...
I didn't say that they were, I was conclusively persuaded. I just said that I found them persuasive.
If I ever am unfortunate enough to be before you in your next service, I'm going to remind you of those remarks.
Will the defendant please rise?
That's right.
So but I've been focused on, making sure that there's a well-informed decision, and maybe we're giving something up if we run these concurrently. But I just want to emphasize, if we should be moving these forward concurrently, that this is going to be a process, and I think that you're in agreement that it's likely going to be a long process, which is going to require, a variety of outreaches, including to the community that is going to be impacted. So, and I would just, to those who are in the community that have certainly an interest in this process, I would want to make sure that you use the concurrence of these as an opportunity to ask questions, and that in the asking of those questions, perhaps maybe whether it's the EIR or the Municipal Services Review, even a portion of the LAFCO can, as you ask those questions can be answered, and that you would reserve, just as, hopefully we will reserve conclusions until you've had all of the opportunity to ask the questions and then have those questions answered. Because, sometimes these processes can be used as an opportunity to shut down what can otherwise be, a development that might make a lot of sense. And so you're already focused on what outcome you want, as opposed to actually participating in the process and actually on your own making a fully informed decision. So I would just kind of throw that caution out there. And then my question to you, Jeff, is related to the commitment that we can expect from Wilson should the council approve both of these expenditures today. Our portion, it sounds like, is going to be a little less than 13% of the cost, and Wilson Homes will be covering the rest of that. And certainly that's a big chunk of change for you guys. It's also a chunk of change for us. We just want to make sure that if we do approve it today, there's not going to be a pullback if more information becomes available as a result of the EIR, because it sounds like we're going to be committed. And I'm not criticizing the pullback that you did previously. I thought that was prudent. You did it rather quickly once you found out the information, and we were able to kind of put the brakes on it until we got some additional information, and you guys felt comfortable moving forward. So I just want to make sure you guys are in.
Fair question, especially given the history on this particular project. And council member, I will tell you that your staff has a very unique way of making sure that we are in, because they ask for an enormous percentage of the money up front. And I'm saying that somewhat tongue in cheek, but I'm not critical of that at all. I think that is a prudent process, a prudent strategy. Yes, we are absolutely in 100%, maybe more so than on a typical project, because we have had this unfortunate opportunity to really do some preliminary analysis. You are all keenly aware, because it was a very public process, that we identified some concerns as it relates to tiger salamander. But at the same time, preliminary cultural studies, preliminary biological studies, preliminary umpteen other studies. And so we have a sense of confidence of what's going to probably come forth as the more detailed EIR evolves, although that's going to take, 12 to 16 months, and I think you're optimistic, but I'm going to hold them to the 12 months.
Jeff, I know that you stated with regards to the standalone, sort of those sewer systems, are you more recommending that come at the annexation project process if and when it should be needed, or, this is sort of premature, or?
If the council wants to analyze these, then certainly there's the opportunity to do it in the water and sewer study process that goes along with this. It is completely your discretion as a council. I guess I just simply wanted to clarify and go on the record that the applicant in this case is not requiring or requesting or desiring that. We are very comfortable. We've had a great deal of dialogue with your engineering staff, and we are comfortable that there is a path forward for this project as well as Heritage Grove and the other things that are necessary in the community. To be quite honest, we were concerned that maybe there were some capacity issues that wouldn't be resolved in a timely manner. And your city engineer, Mike Harrison, has done a great job of really spending some time looking at it and demonstrating to us that the path forward and the time frame that the city is looking at is something that we will probably be able to work with. So from our perspective, going out and sort of reinventing the wheel, as they had to do up at Tesoro Viejo or they had to do at Riverstone because they didn't have a city to tie into, is not something that we're looking to do. Well, again, we've been Clovis builders for a long time, and the council and the staff have worked with us on all of our projects. When there were problems, we identified a path forward within your existing system, and we're very comfortable continuing that process.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to comment on this item?
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm here representing landowner of multiple properties in that area.
Your name, please?
My name is Tro. I'm sorry. Tro. T-R-O.
T-R-O.
Short for trouble. So I represent 5910 Province, 5110 Cypress, and 9110 Cypress. So the problem that I believe I speak for the neighborhood as well is that we don't want to be forced to connect to city water. We're perfectly happy with our well systems as well as our septic tanks. We feel that if that's something that could be decided at our discretion in the future, it's something that we're accustomed to, the level of water we use and everything, and we don't want to be connected to the city water in that sense. And the second thing is, for our properties, they're all along the canal. And I saw in the plans that there's going to be an elementary school that's going to be directly adjacent to our backyard fence. And that's something that obviously we never had consideration for when we bought the properties and moved there, and that's something that we are also opposed to, in a sense.
And you do realize that where a school's place is Clovis Unified School District and not us?
Right. So this is just me voicing our concern.
Okay.
Yeah. And, but yeah, that is all.
Okay. Questions?
I'm just trying to get a visual on where your houses are.
Yeah. So along the canal, when you go into Shenandoah Farms area, we have two properties that face the canal towards Shepherd, and we have one that faces it east.
On the south side of Shepherd?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you referencing the Fry and Kern Canal?
Or you north side, sorry, north side. Am I referencing the what, I'm sorry? Yeah, the north side, not the south side.
The north
I'm sorry, the south side.
It's on the
north.
north side.
north of Shepherd.
When you're saying the canal, are you referring to the Bryant Kern Canal?
There you go, yes.
So not the Dry Creek.
Dry Creek, actually, yes, sorry.
Okay, the Dry Creek, kind of, I'll call it like a little spillway.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No.
All right. All right, thank you. Can you give us your address one more time, or the address of the people that you're representing?
Yes. 5910 Province, 9110 Cypress, 9103 Cypress.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question, or? No question?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Norman Morrison from the DCP. First off, I noticed earlier that they stated that the DCP had been given notice of this. We were not given notice. Neither myself nor any of the neighbors received notice of this. The only people I'm aware of in the DCP who received notice were those within 800 feet of the project. I think there's also a lot of people within the project boundaries, by looking at next door, and I can only go off of next door, that also didn't receive any notice of this. There were a lot of people that have expressed surprise at this on next door, that appear to have addresses within the covered area, that have expressed opposition to this. I would suggest the city possibly look at next door to find that out. There's a lot of opposition out there to this. It seems like a lot of people didn't receive notice. I think the first thing is the obvious question is, why is this project even needed? We haven't even built out Heritage Grove. The other, Loma Vista isn't even fully built out. Why are we talking about building out or bringing in another 1,000 acres for future development? And I know, Councilmember Aspect, you talked about this may never happen, all that. Leo Wilson's not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars so he can grow pecans and label them grown within the city of Clovis sphere of influence. He's spending this money, and his representative basically tacitly admitted to it. They're doing this with the intention of building. And it's not going to be, I know there was a discussion or comment earlier about it's not going to happen quickly. Let's look at how quickly Heritage Grove went in. The first few projects there went in pretty darn quick. So it may not be within 12 months, but it's going to be quick. He's not doing this, just as I said, just to have it within the sphere of influence. He's doing this for the intention of development. There were a lot of people that were here, if you remember back to the prior discussions, that talked about, we don't want to be part of this. We don't want to be in the sphere of influence. We're being drug into this. It's unclear to me if they received notice of this. Again, if they weren't notified of this. I remember there's a lot, and I'm sure the council members will remember, there's a lot of people adamantly opposed to being drug into this project, unwillingly, kicking and screaming for part of the sphere of influence. Some of the things I also was hearing is, it seems like we're making decisions based upon incomplete information, just information that's provided to us. And I'm sure Councilmember Whalen has had this happen before in his professional career, but it's kind of telling when you have, and like in my career, where you have an expert come in and say, I never reviewed that, I didn't review that, I didn't review that. I'm just making my opinions based upon what the person who hired me told me. I didn't review any documents other than what they gave me. That's kind of the situation, what I'm being told here, where they haven't reviewed a lot of documents that seem to be relevant. First off, is there even water to supply an additional project of this size now or in the future? You're all aware that the state's been cutting back on the use of river water. And we've heard at multiple meetings before where I've raised this issue, the city of Clovis has rights to the Kings River. I have yet to hear from the city of Clovis what priority your rights are. You can have great paper rights that guarantee you water, when Kings River is flooding the golf course down there. But when you need it now because we're in a drought, you don't get any water from it. I've yet to hear from that. My recollection is from Heritage Grove, you're talking about mining the groundwater already in order to supply the people that are there. If you're talking about mining groundwater and overdrafting the groundwater aquifer for Heritage Grove, how on earth are you going to supply the water for a project of an additional 1,000 acres? Traffic's another issue. I have yet to hear anything. I hear a lot about vehicle miles traveled. That's great. 168 can't handle the capacity of this. How are the people going to even get to 168? Shepherd, Sunnyside, Fowler, 2-lane streets. You're really going to dump that much traffic into them to get down to Herndon to get on to 168, either at Fowler or at Clovis? These people all have to go somewhere every day. These roads aren't set up out there. And from what I've seen so far, they're not going to be set up for decades to handle an additional 1,000 acres. I mean, just a rough back-the-figure estimate at 6,000 square foot lots, that's about 6 homes to an acre. So you're talking potentially 6,000 homes going in out there. 3 vehicles a day, traffic, 24,000 vehicle trips a day. For this project, if it's all fully built out. But yeah, we have no analysis for that. We have no analysis for water. We're hearing about the sewer, and we're wanting to transfer the sewer down to the existing plant. Sounds great. Which roads are going to tear up now? My road going to get torn up for another year? So we were out for about a year and a half with the last development where you guys had utilities put in on Sunnyside. Is that going to happen again? Or is it going to be Fowler, which gets torn up, and then all of Fowler gets shifted to our road again? The issues with the sewer also bring the issue of, you're talking about hardscaping, essentially another 1,000 acres. I think this is going to be an issue that's going to start bringing up in the Sigma analysis because too much acreage is getting hardscaped. You're not getting the permutation into the ground anymore. It's not percolating. It's all running off to a different location. So none of that water that would have fallen there is now coming into the groundwater aquifer in that location. I haven't seen anything for purple pipe up in that area to supply to put more water in that's being brought out. It's all flowing out of the area. And that affects those of us who have wells. It affects us very deeply, pun intended. I mean, some of us have had to spend $30,000 to put in a new well and new support infrastructure for a well due to the fact that development around us has lowered the groundwater. And the reality is adding to the sphere of influence it's going to add to urban sprawl. We hear Clovis talk a lot about the Clovis way of life. Clovis way of life has always been about a small community. I'm not seeing that on Nextdoor from what I'm hearing anymore, and I'm not seeing that with the amount of traffic here. I'm hearing kids, and I mentioned this at one of my last ones. At the time, my then 9-year-old asked why Clovis wanted to become the next Fresno with all the development. You can't even tell for a lot of people when you're between Clovis and Fresno anymore. It looks the same. And again, it comes down to what's the current need. We haven't built out what's already been approved. We've already got Heritage Grove. Build that out first. Then start looking at what the additional need is. Do the infrastructure that is supposed to be one of the first things followed and first things implemented. The other concern is...
Can you start wrapping it up, please?
Yes. The other concern is this is breaking up a project, a CEQA project, into multiple components. That's an issue with CEQA, and the council's kind of alluded to that. If this is being brought in, the first project needs to be revised to include this project. This project has to include the other project. It has to include all the other developments around it as part of its analysis. So I don't think there's any reason. You can go ahead and explore the EIR, but I don't think there's any reason or any justification at this point to be making movements with LAFCO or to give serious thought to expanding the sphere of influence. Leo Wilson wants to pay for an EIR to show that, yes, he can develop out there. That's fine. But there's no need for it at this time. There's no proof that there's any utilities for it.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question, Mr.
Sure.
Morrison? I'm sorry. But, Mr. Morrison, it sounds like many of your points are actually arguing in favor of running concurrently the idea of the EIR and the LAFCO request because the questions that you're asking are not going to be answered in a vacuum. The questions that you're asking are going to be answered by exploring more fully what the environmental impacts are going to be and going through the CEQA laws. I don't think that was your intent, though, was to be arguing in favor of the concurrent process. It sounds like more you're already concluded that we should have no development in this particular area. And your thought process, along with mine, has been, well, let's wait till we have some completed development there. But your other questions went more towards, yeah, we really kind of need to answer these questions first. So I just wanted to point that out to you, just in case I was misunderstanding what you were making, the points you were trying to make.
No, my point is slightly different, actually, Councilmember Whalen, and I almost called you Your Honor again, and I know that that's not until January.
Please don't.
I mean, you stroke the ego a bit. My point is there's no need for this project at this point in time, and we're proceeding with the project where we don't have any facts. I mean, this is one thing to go to apply to do a CEQA analysis. You can do a CEQA analysis on property even if you have no control over it. He can do a CEQA analysis on his own property. I can do a CEQA analysis on my own property by hiring someone. He can do that and then come back and say, here's what I found, and then move on from there. What I'm saying is we don't need to be proceeding down the road of starting the ball rolling with getting the LAFCO approval, moving to apply to LAFCO to separate this from the county, to bring it within the sphere of influence. If he wants to do the research now, that's up to him.
Mr. Morrison, but in your earlier comments during the public comment portion of the meeting, you argued that we haven't kept our promises and traffic is horrible. Well, until we control that area, we can't fulfill those promises. And so we need to study what is the traffic impact out there with or without this development. So.
And respectfully, my answer to that is I don't see that the traffic will be able to be handled out there. You're talking about a major development. You don't have the physical access needed in order to do the amount of homes that are generated by Heritage Grove, the development to the south of Heritage Grove, this development, and the others that are going in out there. You need more than a 2-lane road. You're going to have to get at least a 4 to 5 lane road, and there's no way to do that.
And that's what this IRA will, the EIR is going to tell us.
Having been through these, and again, respectfully, having been through multiple EIRs through the Woodside project, I don't have much faith in the EIRs that are done for traffic. Every one of them has said there's plenty of capacity, and it's pretty clear that they don't count the other EIRs that are generated. I mean, every one of them has said there's more than adequate capacity on Sunnyside, more than adequate on Fowler. There's not. Said it won't have an impact. It has. And each one has underestimated the amount of homes that will ultimately be generated, in part because you break the things up into smaller CEQA analysis. You analyze 150 acres here and another portion of it over here. You don't look at the overall, which says, okay, we've already done all of these other studies over here, and that said this amount of traffic. Now we're talking about bringing this one in. We're just looking at this one. Occasionally there's a reference to some other ones, but generally from what I remember seeing in the analyses, they don't include those.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think you have, I'm Lloyd Buckner, live here in Clovis, and I love the community. And I've heard, but I'm really concerned about the infrastructure, and I'm totally in agreement that it's inevitable that this land will be residential all the way to, well, right now from the foothills of the dam. And but I have a big concern. As you know, I was with the transportation planning for my life, as a transportation planning engineer for the government and for road commissioner for Madera County. And we had a coalition 20 years ago between Fresno, all the counties from Sacramento to Bakersfield. We got together every month and discussed issues of transportation. And I don't know, I've been out of business for about quite a few years now, but I do know that Caltrans will have to play a major role in this for developing a freeway system. Now, we in Clovis can get on 168 and go all the way to the border without going to a stoplight. But to go to 99 in any place, 37 stoplights just to get Herndon to 99. And I tell you, this is ridiculous. Right now, I meander to the dam and around county roads and get to 41 and go across there. But when you add in another 10,000 or more people, transportation has got to be addressed as one of the three major infrastructures: water, sewer, and transportation. And so I encourage that consideration will be given to hire a transportation, or even Caltrans should take the lead agency in a freeway system. And I know that there's federal money, and man, I'm paying an awful lot to Caltrans to provide safe travel. And not only that, they're talking about the green, you know, every stoplight. Well, then you that's putting on the brakes, that's using the gas and everything else. So environmentally, it will be a cleaner, greener world, and everything else if we can address to get from here to freeways to go north and to the coast. And I'd appreciate that to be a major factor in your study. And if you have any comments, your questions, I'd appreciate it. Hope to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Buckner.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, attendees. Nathaniel Weibert. I live at 9658 North Stanford, so just north of Shepherd, east of Sunnyside. It's kind of in the Quail Run area. So we remain, of course, a small county island right when Heritage Grove was being built. I do agree with Mr. Morrison in the sense that the surrounding areas, even though Shepherd has been widened, it has alleviated some traffic on Shepherd. However, now, of course, people use the extra lane to go faster and swerve back in and cut over. So it makes a little bit more of a traffic hazard as well. Now that the crosswalk or the canal is kind of a crossway with a walking pattern for Heritage Grove, there probably needs to be a walking light system like there is on Fowler, crossing for that, just an FYI. I do agree with the gentleman before me, though, that growth in the city of Clovis is inevitable. I am all for it, and I encourage it because I do love the city of Clovis. However, I'm more concerned about the endangered species of water living on a well. I myself have spent $20,000 just this year going deeper, putting on restrictor valves to only be with less water. And so I haven't had to redig yet. However, I'm still in the same scenario. Fortunately, I have been approved for the Self-Help Enterprises program, so I'm getting deliveries of water. But before that, I was on pace for about $60,000 a year just to drink water and be able to irrigate some of my plants. And within that Quail Run district, I probably am one of the least fortunate, as I'm a government employee. Most of the people in there are very wealthy, older individuals that can sustain that kind of cost just for water. However, my family cannot. And so I'm more concerned of the water situations moving forward as the city grows. I did call Mr., I don't know officially how I should call him, but Mr. Magzig as the supervisor at the time and said, you know, I do know that there's a sphere of influence coming soon, which is this, because I inquired about the CSA 51, like rebirth, rejuvenation. We bought my wife's grandma's home at the time, who was a part of the CSA 51, which was voted down. And I understand, I think Horseshoe Bend and Appaloosa Acres was a part of that. But I guess clarification on sphere of influence and annexation. Does the sphere of influence mandate that we get city water and sewage, or does annexation mandate we get city water and sewage? I love my well. However, I would love for my family to be able to shower. And especially with the state of California wanting to tax our well water anyways, why not pay the city of Clovis and not California? I don't see the sense in it either way, and so I'm just curious of the future of my water so I can feed and bathe my children.
Well, the solution is, annexation is the solution, the ultimate solution, because if you're in the sphere of influence, doesn't mean that our water gets to go into the county, but definitely our water will be going into a portion of Clovis, which is already annexed. So if you're in the annexed area, our water will get closer to you. The beauty of our water is that we're trying to be sustainable as a city, and so we've made great deals. Our staff has, we haven't, but we've approved them with water sources. So we're using surface water versus aquifers. You know, you might have heard something different earlier, but that's not what's happening in Clovis. We're responsible. We manage our water very well, better than most cities, and we have alternatives to find water. And so most of the development that is happening today, for the most part, gets serviced by surface water. That is Kings River water, FID water. So if this portion of it, I believe, is in FID?
It is.
It is. So they will have FID water, therefore we can take pipes to portions of what's being addressed today.
So it's not a guarantee. It would almost be like CSA 51, where you would bring the pipes to my street, and I would have to pay for it to my house.
You would have to connect somehow, and there'll be a price for that. So,
and that'll be something brought to us residents when the time comes.
That's why you want to stay engaged, because there's a lot of things that can happen, especially if the good Mr. Wilson allows for, you know, certain amenities out there. The water can get close, and if it gets close enough, and it costs less.
Correct. I mean, I heard there was talks, because Mr. Wathen lives in our area. I heard there was talks that area of Lexington and Purdue may get the pipes there, but that it wasn't going to extend further where we're at. Rumors are rumors. I don't try to spread them, but that's what I've heard within our housing area complex.
It can't happen without annexation, so.
It can't happen without annexation?
Cannot.
Understood.
Mayor, I just wanted to clarify, it's going to be that if he does live in Quail Run, he's outside of FID. And I did want to also clarify, is going to be that the sphere of influence does not obligate the city to provide any services. The annexation process, the city would be required to provide services.
That's what I said, so.
Yeah. Correct.
So this doesn't benefit me, or what's the AFID? Acronyms, I'm all about acronyms and abbreviations with the government, working in the VA, but there's been a lot going on that I don't understand.
FID is the Fresno Irrigation District. We get our water through them. They convey the water to us from the Kings River, and we have agreements with them for a certain amount of water. But their water can only go in their territory, and apparently, John's saying you're outside their territory. But when we develop, we put it on the developer to find water for those homes that they want to develop.
And currently that's not on the plan?
Well, no, not yet, because you're outside of that.
But with annexation, that's not part of the plan, annexation?
It would have to happen after annexation, yes.
Okay. Because with Heritage Grove as well, just two last things if you don't mind. Heritage Grove as well, I was told it's kind of like Harlan Ranch, where the reuse of water, right, where we were told the runoff water would go back into the reservoir to the north of it, which would help resurge the groundwater for us. I know we're in a drought, but I've seen that thing definitely.
We have a sewer plant, and we treat our water so clean you can literally drink it. But the government won't let us drink it. And we pipe that water through what we call purple pipes. And the purple pipes are going north into your area. And you can irrigate with those purple pipes with this reclaimed water. And that water will be allowed to percolate into the aquifer, that way diminishing our impact on the aquifer with recovered water.
But the aquifer was supposed to be behind Heritage Grove to the north, to help replenish our underground systems.
I don't know where the aquifer
When
is,
Heritage
but
Grove was built for the city council meeting, wasn't that right, Mr. Morrison? Something like that? I think. I won't even.
see, I wouldn't know where I don't know the geology of your land, so I wouldn't know where the aquifer is. But if there's aquifer and it can percolate that purple pipe water, we'll get there.
Okay.
So it diminishes our use of the aquifer. And therefore, the theory is that wells go dry less, or the extent, because we're not drawing on the aquifer.
Okay.
The city isn't.
Last comment. We do live in Fresno County. I will speak on my behalf only, no other residents in there. My address does state Clovis. So I am fairly a little disappointed when you stated we cannot help you until the sphere of influence is changed, when you definitely can help us by contacting Fresno County. Your power is greater than ours.
We can do that.
That's all I have.
But there's no guarantee they'll do anything.
I understand, but your power is still greater than ours. That's all I have.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Ara Kelarisi, and my business address is 389 Clovis Avenue, Suite 100. I'm here on behalf of Heritage Development Company. Glad to be back to hear about the proposal and to learn more. I was encouraged by the questions that council was asking, similar in line with some of the thoughts as a stakeholder who is actively working diligently in Heritage Grove. I think there's a lot of discussions that we've had as a group, as an industry, around impact fees, around utility services, general plan updates, which I think we're at the beginning stages of, and then, of course, this project having come to you before. And as I mentioned when I made comments the last time, I think the big concern is just making sure that there is capacity to be able to develop Heritage Grove. I know in the meetings regarding the impact fees, there was some questions. We are in contact with staff. We have ongoing monthly meetings, so we appreciate that. And we have more meetings coming up, and so I'm encouraged to learn more about how much capacity there is. I think that is just something that we would just like to put a flag in the ground that is obviously very important to see the areas that we have identified for growth to grow. And there have been other areas that we've proposed as potential sphere of influence expansions, and our intent was to do that during the general plan update process when that comes forward. So I think that's still something that will come before you in the future, but as of now, we just also, as a quick update, we are working diligently on the plan and the EIR that was approved for the Heritage Grove properties that Heritage Development Company will be developing, and we'll be happy to provide you updates over the coming months on that project. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment on this item?
Hearing some of the things about especially traffic, where being in the county doesn't seem to matter to you. And when you do these traffic impact reports, I've seen some of them that, for like the Shepherd and Sunnyside area, it's like it ends a certain area, nothing about how the traffic flows into the county, what impact there is on county roads once it starts leaving the city. Is there anything that you do really to show how you're going to impact the county with your traffic? Is there any reports at all, or do we have to have the county do those reports?
Well, that's what the environmental impact report will attempt to do. And when
well, it doesn't seem to do it when you've done other developments, you know, in the Teague area. It does. I was looking at, like I say, the area of the Sunnyside and Shepherd area. It doesn't seem to go on to where it dumps into Fowler Avenue and all the traffic from Shepherd. You've allowed an extra access to, you know, for right turns from one development onto Shepherd to head out towards Fowler Avenue and Sunnyside. But it doesn't seem to show that there is that much traffic to what the impact is going to be on those streets. you know, from looking through some of the, statistics that they're showing, it doesn't really show the impact on Fowler Avenue. And I don't know, like I say, it seems like you're not going to really care about that because that's going to be county. You know, that's going to be a county problem. They have to fix it.
Well, we do care about the overall traffic patterns within our city. Unfortunately, there's some areas of our city that have now become county islands.
Yeah.
And so we do have to care about them because they impact our traffic and we impact their traffic. So
right.
We do care. And we have cared. And we try to be good neighbors, and we've done that throughout the process for decades now.
Because originally, like the Shepherd Temperance area, all that traffic was supposed to go down to Temperance, and nothing was really supposed to go down Fowler at all. But there is. Most of that traffic is coming back down around to Fowler. So to say that, you know, you've solved things on that for the traffic flow, you haven't. I mean, it's still people are coming down Fowler from the Shepherd Temperance when they're supposed to be going down to Temperance to get to the freeway.
Well, one thing I do recognize is that our corridors are not fully built out yet because some of the land that they traverse is still not in the city of Clovis. Until we get projects like the one that is before us today and we proceed in doing something about it, can we eventually, you know, fix the puzzle that Clovis is, especially in that area to the north of us where we've only been there for so long. And yeah, we've probably caused some of that problem because a lot of people are traveling now on narrow county roads. But if we don't get projects like this, we will never fix your issues because people have nowhere to go but down your roads. And so I believe, in my heart of hearts, projects like these will mitigate some of the traffic.
Are you going to direct it over to Temperance or down Sunnyside or over to Clovis instead?
Well,
is there a way that you're going to make
it's a free country, so people can drive wherever they
that way?
People are going to drive wherever they want to go. So we can't control that, but we can model it to a certain extent. And it's been my experience. I understand you may not agree with this, but it's been my experience that the models are pretty close because they can approximate how many people are going to come, what they're going to do, and how they're going to do it. Approximate. It's not a science, I don't think, but it's pretty close. But we need to build out the rest of that portion. Shepherd is not a complete road. Until we get a complete road that we envisioned as a city, you will have the problems that you have.
I don't want to be hit anymore just trying to slow down to pull into my property.
No, we appreciate your comments because they do mean so much to us. We take all comments very seriously because you are the families and the property owners are impacted, especially the ones that live in the county.
Yeah.
Paul, we can't tell people how they have to traverse the streets, and I understand your point. And I remember it was probably 2 years ago you were here, and you said that you did not want to be within the sphere or the city limits of the city of Clovis.
Mm-hmm.
That causes a problem because then who's going to fix your road between Teague and Neves? And Shepherd's taken care of because we've taken care of that part. But who's going to fix that road? And the county's going to say, we didn't make this happen. And then it's going to be incumbent upon the city of Clovis to build a road or improve a road in an area that we have no jurisdiction in. And so I don't want to be overly critical. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I don't want to be part of your family, but I want you
but you're going to dump on
me.
But you're going to dump all this traffic on me.
You're absolutely correct. I'm stating that we can't tell people, but you can't go down this road. And people are going to go where it's the easiest to get there, quite frankly. And with your road particularly, and I do travel that road, once you cross, if you're going south, once you cross Teague, it does get a little more bumpy, I guess is probably a good, until you get to Fowler. And then we've improved that part of the road, and hopefully if this project is eventually built out, Shepherd will be improved between Clovis Avenue and Fowler, and that should take care of some of this problem, because people, the gentleman who came up earlier was talking about basically an east-west freeway. I went to Wonder Valley last week. I took 168 to 180 and shot out that way, or sometimes I'll go down Academy. And so there are ways to do this, but we can't tell people how you have to drive. We can tell them how you have to drive. We can't tell them how you get there. But I think your points are very well taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Gerald. I live in Shenandoah. It's in the proposed area to come within the sphere of influence. And a couple things. I mean, clearly it's in the Wilson's best interest to develop this. There's a lot of money to be made. Clearly it's in the council's best interest. You wouldn't be betting on the come with 13% of the cost of, the front loading, the money to take a look at this. It's how you make money. I mean, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, earlier this evening, you said the city makes money by development. That was your words this evening. So I feel like it's David and Goliath here. We've got, 50 residents that the majority of them, I assure you, don't want this to happen. And we've got a developer and we have a city that are both, advocates for this to happen. I just want to be honest. So we have different goals. I would submit that it doesn't help for all of us to get this one business day before this happens. I don't know how you guys work this out, or whether that's on purpose, or the inefficiencies of government, but can you send this out a week ahead of time or 2 weeks ahead of time? This is identical delivery time as in 2021 during COVID, when we had this exact same conversation. So if I had a suggestion for you, something that's an action item that would help all of us, why don't you give this stuff out a week or two ahead of time? And that's probably why you only got 5 responses online and just a handful of my neighbors down here this evening. So if you could improve that, I'd appreciate that. Jeff, I was curious as to where that the tiger salamander was located at. You said you had a documented case of it. Do you know what location? The spillway, or okay, all right. And correct me if I'm wrong, you also have a mandate from the state that you're supposed to increase the number of residences that you've got within, each city has a mandate from the state. Is that accurate? So the state wants...
Increase density. They want more people on an acre.
Okay.
And they're mandating that.
Okay, but isn't it the total number of doors in each municipality supposed to increase, or is it just... I believe that's the case. So we've got the state that really wants this to happen, the city of Clovis that really wants this to happen, the Wilsons really want it to happen. So it is a David and Goliath situation where there's just 20 people against the whole rest of the state that we're going to have a really tough slog of it. So I'd like these to come out sooner. I'm not in favor of this at all. I moved out of the city so that I could have my own water and septic and sewer, and it's just I didn't have any idea that this was gonna go over the top of this, and it's probably gonna happen, but it's not what the residences the residences within the sphere of influence overwhelmingly don't want this to happen. And they're not, I mean, we don't vote for city council. Currently, we have no relation other than just being able to come to this meeting this evening and tell you that, but it's I don't know what we can do about it. It's a disappointment.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Jim, don't go. I think there was a question too for you.
Well, I just want to say, I'm not the most articulate person in the world. Cities don't make money doing anything. I think what I was talking about to our new economic development director is that development, like retail, commercial, we have very few ways for revenue to come into the city. And our property tax doesn't pay for the cost of housing. So I apologize for my flippant remarks. We don't make money on anything, and we're not advocating for this at all. So just if for whatever that's worth. Sorry,
I appreciate your clarification, but the reality is the more residences you have within the city of Clovis, the more property tax you have to work with, right? It's just top line revenue increases, right? That's better. The more houses that you have, the more property tax that you have available to spend. It's scaling. It's better. The more houses you've got, the more revenue you've got, and I think it would be disingenuous to claim otherwise just from a business standpoint.
No, that's fair. I would say the property tax doesn't cover the cost of more houses. So the more houses we have, the more expenses we have, and the more expenses we have, the more police we need. So it actually isn't a revenue source. We try to cover the cost of development to make sure there's police and parks and all of that. So it's not scalable exactly like a kind of a retail transaction. But anyway, I just want, sorry if it came across like, we're here to make money and we'll give it away. So that really wasn't my intention. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. I'm a businessman. If the top line goes up and there's many, that helps. That doesn't make things worse. That makes things better for the city.
Thank you. Jim,
sure.
Actually, the point that you and Len are discussing is actually a point of some great conversation related to, if yes, you're right, property tax revenues do increase as a result of annexation, but also our costs do go up. And that balance, just if you are a businessman, and I don't know what line of business you're in, obviously if you're going to have additional revenues, but it turns out that your costs are also going up, it doesn't make sense to expand. So that is a point of some controversy within the city of Clovis, and I think more broadly, and it's something that I want you to be aware of. The question I have for you, though, is, well, first, I apologize for you not receiving timely notification. It is so frustrating for all of us when it turns out that doesn't get done on in a timely fashion, because we can't make well-informed decisions unless we have people here who are telling us what is on their mind. And I understand that you're a little bit maybe cynical at this stage of the process, and I'm not trying to deny you that cynicism, but what you're communicating is something that needs to continue to be communicated, and I know that's frustrating for you, but you're only going to be able to communicate that if you receive proper notice. And so, I'll mention it again to our staff during our city council comments that we really need to figure out a way to be more timely in our notification. The other aspect that I wanted to at least question you more specifically on, I didn't get what your address was, if you gave it, but I'm curious as to your water, because I always like to keep track of those people who are outside of the city of Clovis, if they are actually, feel pretty comfortable with the amount of water that they're receiving just on their own.
Yeah, we've got our own well. It's been good. The level hasn't changed. I've been there almost 10 years. Level hasn't changed. We're pretty responsible with it. We've got our own septic, propane, just everything I love about not being in the city or in the sphere of influence. And I know you guys are careful to say, we're only the sphere of influence. We're not doing that right now. But, the other shoe is going to drop. We don't bring in the sphere of influence and all of this and spend 13% of the upfront cost to do this if your end game is not to annex and build and increase the size of the city.
And there's some value that comes with annexation. Some people feel, others feel, it's not worth the value to be. But are you close to the Frank Kern Canal, or are you close to the spillway in the Dry Creek? Because I'm wondering why your water.
I'm in the north east corner of Shenandoah Farms. So the gentleman Tro that was here earlier.
Yeah.
Those are my neighbors across the way, next door, and across the street from me. So yeah, we're, and that school, I know you said you don't have influence over what school goes where or whatever, but yeah, that would be.
Well, we certainly like to communicate with the school that there's going to be some development taking place there so that they can anticipate that. But that's another topic. Appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you sharing with me how it's going with your well water.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Craig Howard, neighbor of Jim's, 5772 East Province. I'm going to suggest that you postpone a decision. I'm with Jim and a lot of people. It's not adequate notice. And if you look at the map, you can't even tell what the western boundary is. Some of the words are not legible. I got mine Thursday night. I canceled a business trip to be here just to hear what was happening. So I don't know why we're in a big hurry. Why not postpone, remail this out in a couple of months, have this meeting all over again? We really don't know what's happening with the salamander. They said they have it mitigated. Maybe they don't. If it's too much, they're not going to do anything about it. Maybe we need to talk about that salamander a little bit more. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm in the county, so it's not my money. But I'm not quite sure why you're in a hurry to spend $100,000 of taxpayer money when you don't have those things resolved and you don't really know how the residents feel, because they did not get this. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Present here? Caleb? Anybody on the web?
No.
Okay. I'll close the public portion of the item and bring it back to the council for comment or...
Mayor, I just had a question with regards to those. Thursday is also when we get our packet. Our requirement by law is 48 hours? Scott, what is it? So, because if you got it Thursday, that's when I got my packet. So I've always received a packet Thursday, so I'm just trying to see how that is not according to what we are bound by. So is it 48 hours?
So, the question
notice?
about notice,
Mm-hmm.
so the notice was mailed out on Friday, on November 4th. Is when the notice was mailed out. So the posting, maybe the clerk can verify, 72 hours before a hearing.
72 hours before the hearing. Okay, thank you. And we actually sent notice beyond our legally required area.
Correct. Yes, we sent to those within the 923 acres, 800 feet within the 923 acres, and then those within the Dry Creek Preserve.
And the preserve, we did send to the preserve too?
Correct.
Even though some say they didn't receive it?
Yes.
All the homeowners in the preserve.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So just to be clear on this notification issue, since we're coming up and talking about it more in detail, we sent it out on November 4th, that's a Friday, and then they're saying that it's postmarked for the 7th, which is a Monday. So when we send it out on the 4th, I don't know, are we sending it to the post office, after they're going to actually be able to postmark it?
So they pick it up at 4 p.m. is their pickup, so I'm not sure if they mail it out, that Saturday. It looks like that Monday is when they postmark and it goes out.
Yeah. Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further comment from the council?
This has come before us already, and I have to look at it at long range in that the mandates coming from the state, our RENA numbers are going to come up. We got the numbers like 9, almost 10,000 more homes. So there's two ways to do it. One is don't grow anymore, pack all those 10,000 homes on top of each other with all of us, and then the county would benefit because we can't stack it right next to you, but we would stack it everywhere currently. Or we can be smart about it, increase the sphere, and plan for the 10,000 homes, and allow it to grow and to develop in a smart way, in that there's developers, there's our planners, and we go, how do we want to color this new area so that way these 10,000 homes can be placed strategically around commercial, around transit sites, all that. That is a huge issue. And we've been hit by the state time and time again, and even when Governor Newsom first came on, he called us out because we weren't, current on what we were doing. And so because of that, I think this is the correct way to go. And it is smart planning. Not only that, because it is led by a local developer, it gives me even more assurances in that you know where to go. So it's not like some developer from out of town who doesn't care, just builds homes and leaves. The Wilson Company has always stayed here, has been a working partner with our staff and with the council for maybe over 30 years or even more. And so they have been a very good partner in listening and working together as we move forward. This is only the initial step, so I know that there will be more discussions when they actually go through their master plan. The other thing I wanted to say with regards to the county residents and even our residents is we appreciate you being involved. And there are still more steps for you to be involved, whether it's in this chamber or in the county chambers, in which you can address some issues in which the county can listen to and they can act upon it. And they need to hear your concerns as well. So that way they are more informed in their decision-making process. And so I always say you have a good representative in Supervisor Maxey who will listen to you in this area. He may be on LAFCO too, and so I don't know who's on LAFCO right now, but they will listen to you. We try our best to listen to you to make as informed a decision as possible. With regards to the issues that were brought forward, I believe, like what Mayor said earlier, that this process allows us to best understand and resolve and mitigate the concerns of traffic, the concerns of the environment, the concerns of an endangered species. And so this allows us to really understand it fully, so that way we will even be more informed when the EIR is completed and it comes back forward to us. And so with that, I supported it last time. Last time I was very disappointed when it went down to only 100 acres, because I think that was the initial application. We as a council wanted it to grow above that, but because of what they found out, it was decreased, and I am encouraged with it growing back up to, the larger number of almost 1,000 acres again. So those are my comments.
I guess a question for staff. And I think I know the answer to the question, but this is not within the regional housing needs assessment overlay area, correct? So the neighbors wouldn't have to worry about high-density housing being placed in any of this area. Would that be accurate?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I would assume that people get overly concerned about that, and I don't want them to take that one off the plate. That's all I have.
Thank you. So I just want to address a couple of points that have been made, and then provide some encouragement for participation in this process, because I really do see it as a process. I understand that maybe there's already some conclusions that are being drawn, but for me, this is, we need to have some information before we can actually decide whether certainly annexation should take place. And for me, even the idea of going to LAFCO is problematic, because I want to make sure that we have all our EIR completed before we go to LAFCO. But I think that Mr. Harris made some good points that I think will address some of the questions that have been raised today. Just keep in mind, these questions need to continue to be asked, and you need to make sure that they are answered. We need to make sure that they are answered, as well as representatives for the city of Clovis, and perhaps maybe future representatives some of you if you live out in the county presently. When it comes to the housing question, we did talk a little bit about housing related to the state and how they are pressing for more housing. Governor Newsom has been saying for quite a while that he wants more homes built in the city, or excuse me, in the state of California. He hasn't even come close to his goals, and so that just adds more fuel to his fire. And but I want to make sure that we're clear when we're not all housing is created equal in the eyes of Governor Newsom. Affordable housing is what he's focused on. The housing that we're seeing in Heritage Grove, the housing that we're seeing in Loma Vista, likely to see in Dry Creek Preserve, or actually we've already seen in Dry Creek Preserves, and maybe in your area as well, should we, you know, annex and then have houses built out there, is, you know, subject to some mandates from the state of California, which could include affordable housing. So I want you to understand that. And that's true anywhere in the state of California. There's hardly any place anymore which is, can feel very secure that there won't be any affordable housing next to them. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying it's going to happen there. You just need to know that that's a possibility. The issue of water, the Surface Groundwater Management Act is kind of gone through some of its initial stages, and we are trying to come to balance with the amount of groundwater we have, that it's sustainable over time. We know that there will be variations in how much aquifer we have, or how much water we have in the aquifer that is below us. But maintaining that sustainability is going to be a challenge for this region, and what that can mean for you is that maybe it's going to be beneficial for you at some point to keep your wells, or because hopefully the groundwater will be sustainable, but the aquifer out in your particular area is unusual, and we have some people who have no problems with access to the groundwater, other people who are really struggling just to have enough, well, we heard it tonight, even enough water to provide showers for their family, saying nothing about the landscaping that they have there. So if you were to be annexed into the city of Clovis, there would be at least some predictability in the amount of water that you have coming to your home. It will come at a cost, though, and that cost is associated with a connection to the city of Clovis, and then also an ongoing expenditure not related to the connection or even the capital expenditures associated, at least generally capital expenditures associated with giving you more water, creating more water for you, but also in the amount, or it should be just in the amount that you utilize. So if you have a big piece of property and you want to landscape it and you want to water it, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So yes, we can be there for you. We can provide water for you, but it does come at a cost. So I want to kind of just make sure that we are, you are receiving accurate information in that area. Traffic has also been mentioned as an issue. The state of California has mandated a whole different approach to the traffic analysis. Used to be just kind of level of service, and what level of service means is how crowded an intersection is, basically, or how much traffic goes on a particular street. That was kind of the old calculation. Now the calculation is vehicle miles traveled. It has very little to do with level of service, or at least not as much to do with level of service, and more to do with how far do you live from your work? How far do you live from where you're going to be shopping? So that calculation is a whole new type of standard that is the city of Clovis and cities throughout the state of California are trying to figure out, and it's different. And it may be that the levels of service at your intersections is going to be really, well, I should go like this. It's going to probably receive what would be a really bad grade when it came to level of service previously. So the idea of how traffic is measured is a lot different than what you're used to. So these are, I feel like maybe I'm speaking to a group of people who are catching on to some of these issues, and as this process moves forward, maybe some of what I've said will make more sense to you as you continue to engage in this process. But my encouragement to you is just that. Remain engaged in the process. because a lot of the questions you have need to be answered. And if, you may not like the answers, though. And then the people who are going to be making the decisions are going to maybe have a different view than you. But you need to at least make sure that your voice is heard, and do not let the cynicism that you feel prevent you from participating in the process. Because if you don't participate in the process, then you're going to get a result which will be even worse than what you expect. So make sure that you continue to participate in that process. And then finally, I'll just conclude with this, which is try not to make any conclusions yet. This council knows better than to draw or make any conclusions until the last comment has been made up at the podium during the public comments portion. We should not be deciding anything until all voices have been heard. That doesn't mean that we don't have vision for what the city of Clovis should look like, but it does mean that we should probably give you the confidence that maybe you don't have yet, and that is that we don't make the final decision until all of the voices have been heard. So keep participating in that process. Having said all of that, I believe, again, that I've been persuaded that the idea of moving these concurrently actually is going to be more beneficial to the process, because people will be able to ask questions and get answers to those questions through this concurrent process than if we did them separately. So I'm going to start moving forward with some motions, because I didn't see your light on. And Jose, I don't know if you want to make some comments.
I just want to make a quick comment before you make a motion.
Sure.
Clovis has this unique problem, and it's actually a problem other cities would love to have. People want to come here. We're one of the fastest growing cities in the valley. They come here for all kinds of reasons: education, safe streets, and an environment that people know that their families and businesses can thrive. And so it's been this team's effort to, as we grow Clovis, it's done in a smart way. And it's a challenge. And it's a challenge we've been dealing with. I've been on the council for 24 years. Every single year of those 24 years, we've addressed that challenge. And we don't plan for today. This decision, whatever decision we make today, won't be for today. It will be for the future. It'll be 10 years, maybe 20, before everything comes to fruition. And like Councilmember Vong said, Montiel said, it's smart way of planning the city, and we're lucky that we have the staff that understands that and helps us in our efforts. Every time we've reached the edge of our city, we've made a promise to our neighbors, to the people that live in the county. Some of them believe us and some don't. Is that we'll try to be the best neighbors you have. Clovis is a beautiful city, and we don't want to alienate our neighbors. And we've actually passed ordinances that facilitates that encounter when the rural residential meets up with urban. And I'm sure with this project we can do the same. Okay. Go ahead.
Not to belabor the point. I think two things strike me. It's possible for two things to be true at the same time. I have advocated for the bigger net Clovis cast, the better the plan will be, because some other city won't cast it for us. So I think we have the right sort of frame to decide what that vision will be over time. And all the things that my colleagues said, I think, are true. I am incredibly frustrated, like tipping point frustrated, that you only got this notice like yesterday or whatever you said. We've had this conversation so many times. So there's a part of me that says we should, whoever said we shouldn't do it, we should wait. So I don't know if, I am tipping point frustrated. That is really not okay. In the world of social media where you can do something in 13 seconds, what I had for lunch, the fact that we can't get you a postcard is a problem. So I am sorry for that, and we need to do better, because it's super unacceptable. So I'm sorry for that. So I'm trying to kind of get past that. Also remember that it's your choice to annex. You don't ever have to do it. If all of this happens and it goes along and all of that, It's an individual property owner's choice to decide to in or out. You don't have to annex. I think you're mostly worried about what's going to happen to the property around you. You moved out to be away from people and all the rest. That's, you know, at some point there are going to be people out there. So I remember that there's no forced anything on this. And some families might find it advantageous, other families might not. And it's up to the city and the developer to make sure that this property develops respectfully of those that are there. And you may want to sell your property and make it 6 houses. I don't know what the rule would be in California by then, but I think there's lots of options around there. So anyway, I think two things can be true, but I think we're the best city to kind of cast that long-range vision, but I don't think it's going to be imminent. I think it's going to take years to do some of this work, and even though the land is ready, nobody's going to build if there's no market. So I think it's a wise look ahead, but I'm tempted to not vote for it because of the noticing. I probably won't do that, but I hear your frustration, and I am sorry that there's just really no reason we can't mail this out more than a day. I just had development in my neighborhood. I got it the day before too, with the wrong date on it, which was sort of a problem. So we need to do some work in the city on that, because that is not okay. So anyway, I will stop, but I think we're the right city to take a longer view. It's not going to happen today, but let us get these questions answered. Without this work, you'll never know the answer to any of these questions. You will never know the answer.
All right.
Bob?
Thank you. So I'll move that we approve the resolution that authorizes the city manager to execute a consultant agreement between the City of Clovis and De Novo Planning Group for the preparation of an EIR and related services.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it's 5-0. Motion carries.
And I move that we approve the resolution allowing for the preparation and submittal of an application to the Fresno County Local Agency Formation Commission to amend the City of Clovis sphere of influence to include 923 acres plus or minus.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I have 5 votes for yes, no no's. Mayor,
If I could, Mackenzie, was this your first council presentation either in Fresno or here?
No, Fresno, I've had multiple.
You did a very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But you like us better, right? No, don't answer that. Just kidding. Just kidding. Good job. Good job.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item. Item 17, consider various items associated with Clovis Landmark Square located on the north side of 3rd Street and Veterans Memorial Parkway. I've asked Mayor Pro Tem Ashbeck to lead this item since I have a financial interest in land that is relatively close, and therefore I can't participate.
All right, item 17, as indicated by the mayor, is to consider various items associated with Clovis Landmark Square, located on the north side of 3rd Street at Veterans Memorial Parkway. There are 2 items here. One is a receive and file update on the construction, and the second is to consider an approval to amend the 2022-2023 Community Investment Program budget for Landmark Square. And it looks like Ms. Mathis is the presenter.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Unfortunately, Mike Harrison was not able to present tonight. He is ill, so you have the next best presenters, myself and Thad Avery. Thad's our Community Investment Program Manager. So as the staff report reads, tonight I will be presenting an item covering the update or project status of where Landmark Square is, and then staff is recommending that council approve a budget amendment adding $2 million to the construction project for Landmark Square. So the presentation tonight will cover these bullet points. There will be a brief project history provided. We will also provide an update on the work completed to date with the Department of Toxic Substance Control. I'll refer to them as DTSC. I will also provide an update on the county's projected development schedule for the library. We will give a current construction completion and occupancy schedule for the Senior and Transit Center, and we will also review the revised budget. So a little bit about the project. The Landmark Square project is located at the northeast corner of Clovis Avenue and 3rd Street. It covers just under 6 acres. It's 5.7 acres, and it is going to be home to our new senior center and transit hub, and then Fresno County's future library. So going over a little bit of the project history, the project was actually started back in 2013. That's when we began acquisition of the site. But the construction activity started just recently, you know, in the last year, 2 years. So actually in December of 2020, although this slide does say January of 2021, the construction contract was awarded to AMG. Shortly after the award, we began construction site improvements, and that would be in February of 2021. In March of 2021, when we started the site grading, we ran into the contaminated soil issues. In April, we contacted DTSC and County Health, and we immediately began the process of evaluating the contamination, its characteristics, and the appropriate cleanup. In November of 2021, we got to a point where we had done an enormous amount of excavation, we'd done some sampling, we'd done reporting, and we moved to the next phase, which was mitigation, and that was installing a vapor barrier below the senior center and transit center buildings. That was going to allow us to proceed with the construction of both of those buildings. Then in December of 2021, staff brought back our first budget amendment for $3.2 million to cover the estimated cost of that soil contamination issue. It's important to note that once we found the contamination, we have really been working very closely with DTSC and with the county to truly evaluate the soil issues, the appropriate cleanup, the mitigation, all with the goal of resolving the contamination issues on site and hoping for some kind of letter from the DTSC on no further action. So an update with the work we've done with the DTSC. So since December of 2021, which is when we did our last budget amendment, staff has worked pretty vigorously with DTSC and with the county. We've held many meetings reviewing all of the soil evaluation and reporting that DTSC has asked of us. They continue to direct staff to investigate, to test, and to report in a format that they have dictated to the city and our consultants. Since in the last couple of months, they provided some direction to staff on a few technical memos that they wanted to have completed. We did those technical memos. We submitted them to DTSC in October, and there were 2 separate memos submitted. One was for the overall site, and we were responding to specific comments that they had on the evaluation that we had done. So our consultants answered those questions. We submitted it to the county. To DTSC. They are now reviewing that. Unfortunately, the staff at DTSC has changed at least 2 times, and I believe this will be the 3rd staff member that has been assigned to this project. So this new staff member is now reviewing that technical memo. The second technical memo that we submitted in October was specific to the library site. Staff at DTSC felt that with the additional analysis that had been done, and specifically the results for the county site, that they could move straight forward with a clearance on just that piece of property. So that second technical memo was specific to the county site. We were hoping, and DTSC had indicated that they would have something back to us in December. We're still hoping that they can meet that deadline, but again, we're up against the new staff member. Staff will be very diligent in answering any questions, and we have reached out to make sure that they have all the information that they need.
Renee, is the county sharing any of the cost on all this analysis on their land, or I can't remember?
No. At this point, the city we've been bearing all of the cost. So as far as the county library update, again, the county is really awaiting the DTSC's response on a site clearance before they will actively enter into the property exchange agreement with the city. That property exchange agreement has been drafted. It has been provided to the county. Their legal staff is reviewing it. That exchange agreement will specifically cover the conveyance of the city property to the county. It will also cover the conveyance of the old county library site to the city. It will dictate any work that the city is to do on the county side as far as rough grading, maintenance of common areas, and then it'll also stipulate that the county cannot resell the property for at least a minimum of 50 years. Those are the provisions that are currently in this draft exchange agreement. That agreement, again, is being reviewed, but the county has indicated they won't execute that agreement until they get some kind of clearance from DTSC. So I did have the opportunity to speak with the county today, specifically Steve White, on where they are with their project. Steve indicated that they're currently in the design development phase. They will be taking an item right now on December 13th back to the County Board of Supervisors requesting an authorization to release an RFP to move into the next phase, which would be the design build phase of the library. And then once that RFP is issued, they enter into a contract. They anticipate it'll take approximately a year to get that project ready for construction. So if DTSC is able to provide that clearance, which I believe is a key component to the county moving forward, then all signs are that the county should be in a position to start their construction about a year from now on the site for the library.
Renee, while you're on that particular topic, when you've communicated with the county, are they saying that they're not going to start doing any kind of site preparation until they receive the DTSC kind of sign-off, or they're not even doing much in the way of design until they get the DTSC?
So it's my understanding, talking with Steve, they are in the design development phase now. So we don't have any kind of concurrence from DTSC, so they are working on that design development phase. Okay. And Steve indicated to me this morning that they're planning to take an item on December 13th to their Board of Supervisors to authorize that release of an RFP. I'm hoping that we have some kind of concurrence back from DTSC at that point so then they can present that. I will add, it's interesting because most of the meetings we have with DTSC are with our staff. Sometimes the county's involved, they get invited, the county health department, but it seems that the county health department has a direct relationship with DTSC because by the time we call the county to let them know what's happening, they've already heard from DTSC. So they have a good working relationship. I think what the holdup will be is they won't sign the property exchange agreement until that clearance from the from DTSC is received.
Okay, and they're not going to do any digging until they've got that property exchange agreement.
That's right. They wouldn't start any digging until they were ready to construct, and it's my understanding they won't be ready to construct for a year. Okay,
and I won't hold you to this, but yeah. We don't have a sign-off by DTSC by December 13th. That will not prevent that agenda item from moving forward. Is that right, or do we not know?
I can't confirm. When I spoke with Steve this morning, he said they're planning to go to their board on December 13th. If we don't have something in hand from DTSC, they could postpone that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I'm hopeful that they would still proceed with getting that authorization to release an RFP. It's still not binding them to a contract. It's just allowing them to move forward. But it is pretty critical that DTSC provide that. DTSC, when we met with them a few months back, felt pretty confident that based on the technical memo, they would be able to process the clearance for the county site alone. So it's just a matter of the new staff person coming up to speed with all of the studies and work that's been done to date. So moving on with the update on the construction for the city's portion of this project, which would be the Senior Center and the Transit Center, we are approximately 75% complete. We anticipate that the entire project related to the Senior Center, Transit Center, and the on-site improvements with this phase of work would be complete by spring of 2023. I want to make sure that when you hear that date, we're clear on what that means. So we will be complete with the project. However, at that point, there may be some punch list items that need to be completed, and then there will be what's called a commissioning of the buildings. And in layman's terms, that means we're going to test the building and all the systems to make sure they're operational. That could take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. By the time that's completed, we anticipate that the senior center and transit hub would be ready to occupy in the summer of 2023.
Is it possible, though, that the DTSC, I hate to even say this out loud, I mean, if they come back and say you need to do more of this or that, then that's just more this and that we'd have to do?
That is correct. We'll have to do more testing or more reporting or more monitoring.
Mitigation or something.
Correct. Okay. For the city side, we've done appropriate mitigation. That was the vapor barrier. So we'll be able to continue to complete our portion of the site. We're really wanting to get that concurrence from DTSC so we can close this portion of the project out, and we can provide to the county the appropriate level of confirmation that no further actions required. So now,
Renee, I have a question.
Sure.
Would it be helpful for us to involve other state legislators in this DTSC situation, or is it better that we don't muddy the waters and just let it go through? I mean,
of course, I think it could always help. We have definitely provided all of the additional responses to comments that they've asked for. We've formatted their documents the way they want it. Our toxicologist has, and our environmental consultant has met with their staff. We've done everything possible. It's a timing issue, and it's a staffing issue on their end, too, because they've gone through a few staff members. Some have retired, some have been out on medical, and now we have a new staff person.
There's a saying, no news is good news. Are we in that situation here? If we were to involve, let's say, Assemblyman Patterson or Senator Borges, that might potentially kick something out that we don't want, maybe?
It could potentially. I don't see that kicking out something negative. We believe the reporting that we've provided, the testing that we've done, and the analysis by our consultants have indicated our thresholds are below the limits. So we believe we're going to get there. It's the timing. What I would recommend, if you're looking for a recommendation, is if we get to mid-December and we still haven't heard from DTSC, like no response on where they are in our review, maybe we could put a little added pressure at that point.
Maybe we should discuss that at the December 5th meeting. Thank you.
Sure. So now looking at the budget, going back when this contract was awarded back in December of 2020, the budget for construction was approximately $19.7 million. That dollar amount was to cover the construction contract, the construction management, and contingencies. Again, in December of 2021, after we had spent some time evaluating the soil characteristics out there, doing our disposal and our cleanup and our vapor barrier, we asked for a budget amendment of $3.2 million, which brought the new construction budget to approximately $22.9 million. Tonight, we're recommending that council approve a second budget amendment for $2 million, and this is to cover the additional costs of the project. The additional costs are, again, related to the soil conditions, project delays that have caused an increase in the cost, some design modifications that have been requested of the project. There's an increase in material and labor costs, and then our construction management costs. So with the $2 million recommended budget amendment, it brings our new total project construction cost to approximately $25 million. So that concludes staff's recommendation. Again, there were two items covered. One was just an update on the overall status of the project, and the second is staff recommending that council approve a budget amendment adding $2 million to the project for the continued construction of the Landmark Square site. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. I am available, and so is Thad, for any questions.
Thanks, Renee and Thad. Any questions for staff?
Oh, wait, hey, I almost left out the best for last. There we go. Now, I know you've all at some point had an opportunity to do a tour, but here's some recent photos of where we stand with the site right now.
Beautiful. Thanks, Renee. Vaughn?
You know, I don't like it when government does something that keeps increasing and increasing and increasing, because when I first got on the council, what was it, the 13 million to the 19? And that bothered me a lot. And then last time, I thought it was warranted because of the soil contamination. And so in here, it says it's coming from the general fund and the transit fund. Last time it came out of the special street trust fund and the transit fund. How much of this 2 million is coming from the general fund?
So that's outlined in the budget amendment. It's a 1.3 million coming out of the general fund.
Okay. So where does that affect, or maybe the city manager can help, where does that take from? Or do we have that 1.3 million in the general fund to go here, John? Because before it didn't bother me as much because it was coming from a street fund and a transit fund. Now we're taking 1.3 million from general fund. So where is that being taken away from? Which other programs or departments are affected?
We do have adequate funding to cover the 1.3, even though it's unfortunate. It just means that we'll probably have less fund balance available when we present the ACAFR next month.
So there's a balance that we're taking from. I mean, I want to know, we're taking it from seniors, we're taking it from, or is that not clear? Is that just because we have a rollover balance and so we're just taking from that?
We do have an adequate balance that we can draw from. It just means that the fund balance is going to be less than what it would have been had we not had to draw an additional 1.3. And then, Jay, am I off base? Anything to add, Jay?
So no cuts for the other departments?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And I guess my question is, seeing that there's delays, is this enough? Because last time we were thinking, I mean, you came with a 2.5 to 3.2. That was sort of what I remember. So it was a range, but we went to the max. And so it still wasn't enough. And so now 2 million, is that enough? Or we may come back if there's delays, because each delay there's cost and you know, change orders and material and labor increases.
So let me start with this second, or the first budget amendment for 3.2. There was a contingency, I believe, of about $600,000 in there to cover costs. We felt at that point in time, knowing what DTSC was asking of us at that point, we had enough money to carry us through with the contingency. Unfortunately, when we meet with DTSC, they continue to ask us to investigate the site. They ask for more monitoring wells, more testing, and more reporting, and so that cost was exceeded. Now, the more current estimate, or the most current budget amendment that we're asking for, the $2 million, that also includes a contingency of $600,000. So we are as confident as we can be based on the current costs that we've spent to date, the direction we've received from DTSC on the additional sampling, the reporting, and the technical memos that we've provided, that this should be enough. They could always come back and ask for more. And should they ask for more that exceeds that $600,000 contingency, we would be in a position to have to require additional funds. At this point, this is staff's estimate covering the costs to date with some contingency. I'm hoping that they don't ask for more and we actually spend $600,000 less than the $2 million budget estimate or budget amendment we're requesting tonight.
And should they come for more, John, is there enough next year in that balance in which we can take and not hurt any other departments?
We'll have to take a look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Because I hate having to, sort of, you can't say no. That's sort of where I'm at. So, okay, I guess you hear my frustration. I'm just glad you guys are on top of it, and it's good to hear that the county is getting on board as well, and this will be completed soon, and hopefully that will ease the aches later on. My last question is probably for you, Scott. I found that in the, I guess, for transparency's sakes, if you read this agenda item, and I read the last one too, I think it causes the public no worry, because it just says amending community investment project budget for the Landmark Square project. You don't know if it's $2, you don't know if it's $2 million. But I think if the public heard amending to ask for $2 more million, I think we like that input for them to hold us accountable. It may come back to backfire, because then we're being too transparent and everyone's in here all the time. But I read it and it bothered me. I looked at it and go, no issue, right? Reading it until you read, third page in, then it's $2 million. And we make a contract with the public saying we're going to be good stewards. And so when we ask them for another $2 million, I just feel like it should be here, right in the agenda item. I don't know how my other council members feel, but reading this, it seems like they're moving along. It's not a big issue. We don't need to go in there to ask any questions. So that's just I don't know, Scott, if I know this probably suffice, but would love to hear what you guys weigh in on it as well.
Yeah, that 17B, you're saying, under 17B, say,
Yeah.
Have a dollar figure in there? Yeah. Yeah, I think that's nothing.
And if
An amendment to a budget, I always know it's gonna be
More? Rarely we make it smaller.
And it's relative, because if it's like, okay, $2 million on a $1 million project, that's one thing, but if it's $2 million on a $4 million project, so, that doesn't bother me to have.
And I just wanted to comment on one comment you made, and staff, you can clarify me, is going to be that while we did issue bonds for $13.5 million, we did have additional funding available, so the original contract amount was in the neighborhood of $19 million. So we didn't go from 13 to 25, is the point I'm trying to make, even though it's still not good.
I thought that when I first got on the council, it was in the low teens.
I think it was 13.
Yeah, I thought it was in the low teens, and my first meeting when this came forward was when it jumped to 19, and I remember the architect coming in and saying it.
So early on, it might have been.
Yeah, like when you guys approved it, I wasn't on the council.
I think it was there, but so to your point, it's double what we thought. Now it's 25.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's almost twice 13. So, yeah, I think that's right. But, yeah, there's little turning back at this moment. I don't know really what to do if we said, we're good, let's stop that. Yeah. Anything else, Vong? Questions? Drew? Bob? All right, we'll open the public portion. Anybody in the chambers here wishing to comment on this item? Anybody online? Ms. Rebecca? No. All right, we'll close the public portion and bring it back. The first is just to receive and file on the update of the construction, but there is a motion requested.
I'll move that we approve the resolution amending the 22-23 Community Investment Program budget for the Landmark Square project, as suggested in the staff report.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 in favor, no one opposed, and 1 abstention. Hold on. Mayor? Back to you.
Still didn't do it. And green building standards, we heard this item last week. It's before us because there was not a unanimous vote, or we had one council member absent. So, Andy, you're prepared to, does the council need to hear a report regarding this item?
I just have a quick question. These are changes that are consistent, with what is, basically the California Building, Code sections?
Correct.
All right, so we're just updating ours to be consistent with what the state requires?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions, staff? Anyone in the public wishing to comment on this item? I'll bring it back to the, anyone on the web?
No. I'll move for adoption of the ordinance.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So it's 5-0. Next, item 19, consider adoption ordinance 22-11, amending various sections of Title 4, Chapter 4.4, Article 1 of the Clovis Municipal Code relating to the California Fire Code. It's a similar situation. Do we need a report from staff?
If it's the same kind of code, it's updated to be consistent with California Fire Code.
Correct. Okay, anyone in public wishing to comment on this item? Anyone on the web?
No. Make a motion to approve, adoption of the ordinance.
Second. Your motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item, city manager's comment. John.
I have none.
City council comments. Vaughn?
Yeah, went to the Veterans Day Parade last Friday. I think Valerie Saucedo sort of managed it all. We've seen her around a lot of the veterans events here. And so I also went to the Veterans Day dinner that evening. Councilmember Bessinger and I were there. They did an excellent job. Recognized a lot of veterans, a free meal for everyone, and they filled that whole big place at the Memorial District. I also went to the Second Chance Thrift Ribbon Cutting. I don't know if you guys remember Don and John Coyle, who came in here with Centers for Living, where they changed all those people who were looking for transitional living places. And so they were right next to, is it Baskin Robbins? And so nice facility there. Yeah, take no government dollars, and they just purchased another 2 homes. So they're just doing a great job. So went there as well. That's all I have. Bob?
Sorry. Nothing quite like giving somebody a book to take on the street and get that great.
Uh-oh.
This is a
Play-Doh?
you might be familiar with. So one of the places that I was able to visit was Athens. And so,
Wow.
This is Plato's Republic, which you probably have had to read at least one point in your life, few sections of it. But maybe after your experience on the council, it might be of more value. I don't expect you to read it in the Greek version, which is on the left hand side of the page. But the English version is on the
It's all Greek to me.
right. So, wouldn't encourage anything more than 1 page a day.
1 page a day.
I think you should do devotionals 1 page a day. You're about to do
Considered a,
One of the fathers of the Western civilization, so.
I brought wine. You couldn't have brought ouzo or something like that.
I'm trying to inform your mind.
True?
No, I don't have anything.
Lynn?
Two things. That noticing thing, you guys, we've really got to figure that out. That is like frustrating me beyond words. That and raising fees every 20 years. Those are the two, like in 2022, those would be the two takeaways. What's up with that?
Yeah, maybe it's not the Friday.
Yeah, so I did talk with Mackenzie just to kind of bring back the item. So typically when we bring items to council, such as the one tonight on requesting authorization to enter into an EIR, that doesn't require any noticing. We did that because of the history of this project, and then we expanded it out to the property owners in the Dry Creek Preserve, which we looked to make sure that all of those owners were on there. I do recognize there is a delay in getting those notices to those owners in an appropriate manner. Our requirement is 10 days. When we are required to provide notices, we'll look at maybe pushing it back to 15 days, possibly 20 days. If you get it out there too early, they tend to look at it, set it down, forget about the meeting, and then,
Well, I just think 10 days, it was 10 days before tonight, but that doesn't account for the post office delay and the Sunday and the holiday. So it has to be, they should receive it 10 days in advance. So if it's a I do think that whatever the issue is, it just adds to the frustration when they hold it up and go, I got it yesterday. I mean, that happened in our neighborhood too. So I think I do think and whether we have to raise our fee and charge the developer more or the applicant more to pay for that, I'm not exactly sure, but I think we need to get it to them 10 days or at least a week. I mean, that's, in today's world, nobody can, anyway, you get my point. So but I just also want to say, Jose and I went to the celebration at the Clovis Unified School Board for Betsy Sandoval, and it was really, it was really very sweet. We did go empty-handed because we didn't have a proclamation, which was a little awkward. So I don't know if you think we want to invite her here or do anything for her. I mean, it was a nice event. It was all good, but it was, 38 years. She's sort of like our Harry. She's walking out with a ton of knowledge, and I think that board, who describes themselves as a young board, is a little bit sort of like, because I mean, she's taking all of that. They don't have 38 years combined with the rest of them that she has. So anyway, it was a lot of fun, and Joe did a good job talking for the city.
And that's a good idea. Can we do like a proclamation, like the Clovis Day for Betsy?
Or just bring her here to celebrate her here, maybe, you're thinking? Yeah.
See if she'll come, because her husband's pretty, he's been under the weather for a while now, so she likes staying with Sam, but she's done so much, and congratulations, Drew, on last Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think the voters did a good thing bringing you back, so.
You second that.
So, better you than me, and so that's.
So now it is too late for you too.
What's that?
So now it is too late for you both.
Oh, she wanted me to change her mind to the day of the election. I go, no, it's not gonna. I do hear that there were some write-ins and my name was on it, so I have some friends that will not let me go. Anyway. Okay. There was only like 38, so it couldn't be too many.
You and Mickey Mouse?
Mickey Mouse and me.
What was our turnout, I presume?
Oh, it was horrible. Statewide.
It was right around 30% as of the last one I saw, I think. But they're expecting, I don't know how many.
I think statewide is 36, which is one of the lowest ever, or something like that.
Big county, of course, ours was 24% President.
Yeah, so it's probably than that.
So much for let's move to November and get a higher turnout theory. That didn't really work out.
Well, there's one other piece to it, too, was going to be the biggest thing was going to be the number of people that voted for one candidate was approaching 30%, I believe.
For us?
When it says vote for three, they voted for one.
So they don't follow directions. Oh. Okay.
Unless their direction was to vote
for one.
No, I was gonna.
Yeah. I believe it. And that's all I have. So we'll go into closed sessions as stated on the agenda, and, we may or may not have anything to
We're not requesting action that would be reported out tonight.
report, okay. And after that, we'll adjourn.